smartphones, which I suspect we will have of one sort or another, have in part their origin within Apple's ability to reinvent, to think big and to think outside the box. What's this got to do with our council meeting this evening as such difficult issues are addressed? Well, I think that the unprecedented challenges that Thurrock Council currently face in terms of agreeing budgets and setting priorities will need all of its members from across the chamber to think big, to reinvent and to think outside the box, because the challenges before the authority are enormous. If that is members' aim this evening, then clearly the best results will be achieved for those whom you are elected to serve. Let's just bow our heads for a short prayer. Father God, we commit this meeting to you and our service to the people of this borough. Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend Barlow. Item 1, apologies from absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Rigby, Councillor Churchman, Councillor Gledhill, Councillor Piccolo, Councillor Polly, Councillor Raper and Councillor Salmons. Are there any other apologies? Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Mayor, Councillor Raper had an operation, had a knee replacement and is unable to be here. Councillor Fish, as we all know, had a nasty accident a while ago and he is still housebound until he can get an operation to repair his shoulder. And Councillor Watson has a long-standing family engagement elsewhere this evening.
Well, I'm sure you'll pass the Chamber's best wishes over to Labour members who are unwell. Item 2, minutes. I move that the minutes of the council meeting on the 25th of January be approved as a correct record. Is that seconded? Thank you, Leader. Any objections? Thank you very much. Item 3, urgence of item business.
Sorry, Mr Mayor. Sorry,
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you. Just on the minutes, just for clarification, it does actually state on my ULEZ motion that Councillor Holloway actually voted in favour. I'd just like clarification on that because I think she actually voted against.
Councillor Holloway has indicated yes, so Democratic Services can be corrected. Thank you. Item 3, items of urgent business. I've not agreed to the consideration of any urgent item. However, of course, item 17 does fall, as does the item regarding Councillor Baker's extended absence, and we welcome Councillor Baker back to the Chamber this evening. Item 4, declarations of interest. Do any members have declarations they wish to declare? Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in respect of item 22 in that I am an employee of Thurrock Lifestyle Solutions.
Thank you. Any further declarations? Thank you very much. Item 5, I'd first like to read the names of the fallen war dead. James Ring, Jack Frost, Stanley Malone, Horace Robert Deeves, John William Woods, Harry Knott, Anthony David Stairs. May they rest in peace. Announcements on behalf of the Mayor. We enter the civic season of charitable events, and I'm very pleased to announce a number of events that will be conducted for the mayoral charity. I'll be hosting a mayoral event on Saturday the 11th of March in celebration of Commonwealth Day at the Purfleet Military Heritage Centre. The Heritage Centre boasts many things, including being the second largest Gurkha museum in the nation. It's really something that we should shout about, and I hope members can join me there. I'll be conducting the Commonwealth flag raising here at the Town Hall on Monday the 13th. Commonwealth Day is something that means a great deal to Thurrock. From our military links to Canada in Tilbury, to our diverse links across the borough, thanks to the arrival of the Windrush generation. I hope members will be able to support these two events as we seek to deepen our cultural ties with our Commonwealth family. I will host the civic dinner on Friday the 28th of April to bolster the mayoral charity funds. Details of all these events can be found from my office. My mayoral charity endeavours have raised just over £19,000 so far, which I understand sets something of a record. Proceeds go to my main mayoral charity, the Intensive Care Unit for Babies at Thurrock and Basildon Hospital, as well as supporting our refugee efforts across the borough and smaller groups such as our cadets. And I'd like to take a moment to thank the large business donors who have supported my charity so generously, showing the type of responsible and civic capitalism we all wish to see. Leader of the Council, any announcements?
I think you're going to hear from quite a lot of me tonight, so I won't make any large announcements, but over the last 4 or 6 months, I've been very proud to lead this council, working with Ian Wake as the interim chief executive to make sure we get into stable footing and a future for the borough of Thurrock.
Thank you, Leader. Item 6. I'll take questions from members of the public. One question has been submitted and accepted by the monitoring officer. Ms Byrne, can I please invite you forward to ask your question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Croxall, in your new era of openness and transparency and your calls at many meetings for all 49 councillors to be included in the important decisions ahead, may I please request that you allow the very important decision on the future of the Thameside complex to be voted on not only by the 9 members of your party who sit on the Cabinet, but indeed all 49 councillors at a full council meeting. Thank you.
Whilst I'm sure the Leader of the Council appreciates a round of applause every time he stands up. Leader of the Council.
Thank you. This is an executive decision, and as such, to stay with the Cabinet. But the Cabinet serves at the request of this Council. It has the power to this Council as it sits tonight, and it makes the ultimate decisions, and can direct the Executive if it chooses. But what you see, though, in my openness and transparency, I don't know if you managed to see it, the recommendations to ONS next week, the Cabinet will make a decision the following week, does not include to close or sell the Thameside complex and buildings. Cabinet will asked to submit new bids, and neither bid submitted were a financially sustainable solution and can be recommended to Cabinet, and ONS will be looking at that next week. Members are asked to consider the recommendations of a formal consultation and alternative delivery of the culture options. Any decision of the future of the Thameside fields will follow that. I understand you met Mr. Mark Bradbury, the director, on Monday, and he explained the concerns of your proposal. And if you were able to fully address your concerns, we'd still have an opportunity to present alternative proposals. I would encourage you to do that, please. And with that, with the consultation, there is a clear and a lot of knowledge that you have. And I am passionate, and I don't want to see that missing from the borough of Thurrock. And I would like to work with you to make a financial, sustainable solution to harness that energy.
Thank you, Leader. Ms Byrne, would you like a supplementary question?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, in the name of openness and transparency, and ahead of the local elections in May, as the residents of Thurrock, your electorate, protest outside to save your Thameside for future generations of Thurrock, can I please ask every member in this chamber to rise or raise their hand to show they stand with the people of Thurrock to save your Thameside?
Thank you. That concludes question time. Item 7, petitions from members of the public and councillors. 2 petitions have been received and correctly validated. Councillor Byrne, you have 3 minutes to present your petition.
Yes, please. I'm presenting this petition on behalf of our residents of SS17. Over 4,000 signatures were collected to save the post office. All this, however, has been in vain because the post office ignored the residents and closed it without any discussion. The Corringham and Fobbing, the Homesteads Forum, shop owners like Betty's Bits and Bobs and Shaders, along with residents, joined forces as they always do when the chips are down. I'm so very proud to have stood with these people, but for those who turned up on the Saturday purely for a planned Kodak moment with Stephen Metcalfe, shame on you. to turn up on a Saturday only to go straight home because your plan for leaflet material didn't go as planned. SS17 deserve more than that. It's shameful. Thank you.
Leader of the Council, as Cabinet Member responsible for business, would you like to respond?
Yeah, obviously you know that the post offices are a private entity, or state-owned but private entity with the postmaster. I understand the postmaster's retiring. I think over and over again we need to make sure we keep our local post offices. I think the MP has actually done tireless work in Alsett and Bolton and across the borough to actually make sure we keep our post offices. Otherwise, I don't think we'd have a post office in Alsett for that very reason. So I think we can work together to hopefully we can work with the post office to keep a post office in Corringham. We've done tireless work across the borough, making sure post offices keep here, making sure small shops keep a post office. I think one of our members on this side runs a post office quite admirably locally to make sure we keep that there. I will listen to your petition, and I understand the Mayor is recognising the role of honour for the postmaster as he retires.
Thank you. Mr Green, would you like to present your petition regarding policing in the borough? You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This evening, I submit a petition from the Renovo estate in West Thurrock. A petition calling on Thurrock Council to do more to end the roads of West Thurrock being used as a racetrack. The residents of the Renovo are calling on Thurrock Council to implement a more and an improved deterrent to this ongoing car cruising and enforce the PSPO in conjunction with the police. Residents are now scared to leave and return to their new homes due to the stress of turning up in the middle of an event. This is an ongoing issue. With the help of Councillor Watson, there has been movement with meetings with councillors and police, but the cruising continues. Residents need to feel safe in their communities and their homes, and if nothing is done ASAP, residents are concerned of a possibility of seeing a fatality on their doorstep. Residents need this to come to an end. Thurrock Council need to enforce the PSPO and make these new residents happy as they lay down roots in our great borough. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cabinet Member for Highways and Public Protection, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the Chamber has debated this issue. I don't think there's much more to say on it other than the Council is exploring all options. The Member of Parliament and Councillor Abbas have been steadfast in their support to those endeavours as well, and we'll see what comes forward. In terms of enforcing the PSPO, I think that's really the job of the police. I wish we could enforce the criminal law, but we can't. But I mean, there's no more to say other than the fact we are exploring all options, and if there is, a realistic option that we can support or bring forward to address the car cruising, then we will. But it is a partnership effort. It's not something the council can do on its own. But as I say, we're exploring all options. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Maney. Item 8, update report in respect of petitions presented at the council. Does any member wish to speak? No. Item 9, appointments to committees, outside bodies, statutory and other panels. Leader of the council, do you have any changes you wish to make?
Yes, I do. The Planning Committee as a substitute, Councillor Bass leaving, and Councillor. Now looking. Yeah, well, I've got to find my paperwork now. That I can't remember. Councillor Mays joining the Planning Committee as a substitute.
Leader of the opposition. Councillor Byrne. Councillor Allen.
No, thank you, Mr.
Councillor Massey. Thank you very much. Item 10 has fallen. Item 11, appointment of the Electoral Registration Officer and Returning Officer. I can confirm that the name to be inserted is Ian Wake. Leader of the Council, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you very much. I'll make this short and sweet. It's a legal requirement to have appoint an Electoral Returning Officer. This is nothing like more of a procedural matter for us, but it's extremely important, and I'm here to put these recommendations to the members tonight, and as I've I've just heard the Mayor, we're recommending Ian Week to serve as our returning officer.
Leader of the Opposition.
No comments.
Do any other members wish to speak? Thank you very much. Move to the recommendation. All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Item 12, appointment of Interim Director of Legal and Governance. Leader of the Council.
This is the appointment of Interim Legal and Governance and Monitoring Officer. It's another important matter for us. There is a rigorous recruitment process that was done, and tonight I'm asking for members to support the decision to appoint to the role, and Asmit Hussain, and may I take this opportunity to thank John Jones for his work over the last few months, these difficult months, and putting up with me.
Leader of the Opposition.
I'm happy to second the proposal to echo our best wishes to Mr Jones as he leaves, and to welcome Ms Hussain, and I hope you enjoy your time here in Thurrock.
Does any other member wish to speak? Sum up.
Thank you very much. I take it to the vote, please.
Thank you very much. All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 13, report on the Independent Remuneration Panel. Leader of the Council.
Thank you very much. This report echoes the role of Independent Remuneration Panel and asks members to decide upon that panel setup. As you know, we no longer share a panel with Southend-on-Sea, so we need to make our own arrangements by law. I understand if we get past tonight, the first meeting will be tonight in July. I would recommend to Council that we have 1.3. I think that these people need a small remuneration, and they've looked at the market testing that remuneration, and that is significantly under payments for other authorities.
Thank you very much. Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Mayor, I think we all understand that convening a remuneration panel every 3 years is a legal requirement, therefore something we must do. But frankly, I find it offensive that we are looking at the remuneration of councillors given the financial backdrop of this authority. Therefore, the Labour Group will not be recommendation 1.2, determine whether panel members should be paid a fee. Our view is they should not be paid a fee. Therefore, the fee of £250 a day would not apply. And I really, really hope that that is enough to make the panel members decide that it's not worth the candle and we don't end up with a panel.
Does any other member wish to speak? No. Leader, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, I can answer that. Once the panel has met and the panel comes here, we don't have to accept the proposals, but at least we deal with the legal obligations of our pay. We've had one 4 years ago, we've had one over and over again, and this has been a non-issue right the way through this, and it's been a non-partisan issue. We can have our arguments once the Independent Remuneration Committee has sat. We need them to sit to give us our view, and then we can come back here with their view to accept or deny, say no to their, and then carry on. And I think one time, I voted to not accept their proposals, and that was in 2012 when I think it was a leader. I think we went through and we had an agreement, and then one time it was over a few years. I think there's quite right. I agree with you entirely, Councillor Kent. I think what we do need to do is have the independent panel, sit the panel and see what they come back with and when it should be instigated. I think the last remuneration panel actually reduced our pay. So I think that could come back as well. It's not saying it goes up, it could go down, quite rightly. But let the independent panel decide what that should be, not us in this chamber. And we can't make that decision until we see an independent panel. So I put the motion, and I don't think anyone, I don't believe in paying no interns. I pay a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. It's getting someone to work for nothing.
Move to the recommendations. Move to the recommendations. All in favour? All against? Abstentions? Motion passes. Item 14, Annual Pay Policy Statement. Councillor Snell, would you introduce the report, please?
And thank you, Mr Mayor. The Localism Act of 2011 requires the Council to publish an annual pay policy statement for chief officers. Like many other local authorities, Thurrock's statement includes a pay policy for all categories of employees, which reflects existing employment terms and conditions. The Council's draft pay policy statement for 23-24 sets out the position on 1st of April 2023 and does meet the requirements of the Act. In accordance with the Council's Human Resources Framework Collective Bargaining Agreement, the pay award of 4% contained in the report and the pay policy statement reflect the recommendation from the independent market assessment conducted in December 2022. And for apprentices and the national living wage, the government's budget statement published 17th of November 2022. Under Thurrock's 2019 Human Resources Framework Collective Bargaining Agreement, the Council agreed to remove the annual link to the National Joint Council for Local Government pay rates, so the pay rates could be determined locally. This is a 5-year agreement and runs until 2023-24 financial year. The Council is contractually obliged to conduct and agree an annual cost of living review, ensure the overall increase in pay over the lifetime of the agreement is not less than the cumulative increase of the NJC scales over the same period, ensure its lowest pay point is not below the lowest pay point on the NJC scale, and keeps pace with the national living wage. Following the revised pay policy in January 2023, the Council has met its obligation to ensure cumulative increases are not less than the NJC awards, moving into the final year of the agreement. We're all aware of the challenges faced by this Council at the moment financially. However, even in these challenging times, it is essential that we retain the ability to attract and retain people with the skills and capacity needed to help us deliver our recovery and improvement programme. We're talking about staff here now, we're not talking about councillors. There is provision in the MTFS for an increase in 23-24. Budgeted pay inflation has been calculated using a 4% increase across all pay bands in 23-24. Incremental pay progression through the pay scales is budgeted for each eligible employee, although this will be subject to end-of-year performance and development reviews. So, for 23-24, the independent pay review commissioned by the Council recommends implementation of a 4% increase across bands A to I with effect from the 1st of April 2023. We are not currently able to determine the pay awards for senior managers for 23-24, and if changes are required, a further report will be brought to Council in June to amend the pay policy statement. So we talk about national living wage. The national living wage for workers over 22 will be £10.42 per hour from the 1st of April. The national living wage for workers aged 21 to 22 will be £10.18 per hour from the 1st of April. And the living wage foundation, the real living wage for 2023, is £10.90. The Thurrock living wage will increase by 4% to £10.92 per hour from the 1st of April 2023, which is obviously at a higher rate. So I think I'll leave that one there and open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Cabinet Member for Finance. Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Mayor, with the caveat that there will be a report back when senior manager pay has been determined, we'll be happy to support the...
Councillor Spillman.
I do support the pay increase for obvious reasons for staff working here on the lower bands, but just like I know there's a senior report to follow, but I know there were some murmurs in the crowd, but I mean I don't think there's any fear of any councillors getting an increase in their allowances for some time, so I would like to allay that fear. But likewise, I'm at the risk of offending some officers. I'm not of the opinion that senior staff should get a rise either, considering the position that this council has been placed in. So that's my opinion on that matter. But in terms of our general officers, apprentices, assistant officers and middle range staff, these are tough financial circumstances. You know, we've got a cost of living increase and they have to be able to pay their bills as well. So I thoroughly support that increase.
Thank you, Councillor Spillman. Councillor Byrne.
Yep. Obviously, well, I'm going to support if the workers. It's not their fault all this mess has happened, so they've got to. But talking about increases, didn't that guy over there take 11 grand extra?
Any other member wish to speak? No, Councillor Snell, would you like to sum up?
I just think we need to move to the vote, please, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Recommendations are moved as they are. All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 15, Capital Strategy 2023-2024. Cabinet Member Finance, would you introduce the report, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. It's as per the agenda. We'd just like to bring it forward as seen, please, and go straight to the vote. Thank you.
Leader of the Opposition.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, this is the one item that as the mess that the council is unravels, will be the one that will prove to have been at the centre of our difficulties. And I've got to say that the care that's been taken to put this together this year, with the outside scrutiny, with external experts, with validation from all over the place, has been exemplary. And I have more confidence in supporting this this year than I have for many, many years. Thank you.
Leader of the Council.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I must compliment that. I think it's been a hard few months and I've enjoyed working to go through this, and there's some other items that I've been working with the opposition, and I think this is a way to go forward in all the documents to make sure that there is that openness and we move forward, and I think hopefully the senior officers understood that, and there is some hard decisions there to make in our capital programme, and we've got a capital programme there, and there's some really exciting capital programmes, and we've now got to make sure that it's a realistic capital programme that we can deliver. And I think for too long we had a capital programme that was trying to do everything for everyone, and we didn't do it to succeed. And hopefully we can see some come back next year and look at the capital programme as we move forward in the next few years. So I'm looking forward to moving forward as all 49 of us to actually deliver some of that capital programme in all our wards.
Any other member wish to speak? Yep. Councillor Snell, would you like to sum up?
No, just go to the vote.
All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Item 16, General Fund Budget Proposals. Members will see that the EFS letter has been circulated and tabled for everyone's awareness. Introduce the budget. Leader of the Council.
And can I just make sure that I've got 20 minutes, I believe, and of this, but I'd like, obviously, inside the Constitution, it also allows my Cabinet Member Finance to speak at this point, and I've reduced some of my time to the Cabinet Member to go through some of the technical issues of the item.
As long as you don't breach your 20 minutes, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Right. Tonight is the most important decision we're ever going to make in this chamber as elected councillors. Let me be even clearer on this decision for you all. This decision is not a vote for the budget before us tonight. then there is no future for the borough as a standalone council. And that's what you see in the letter. Some may want that in this hill. Some may say that we should not survive. But I and the Conservatives on this side love the borough and believe there is a future for the Thurrock Conservative here. This budget gives us a chance. This is about a new start. It's about correcting errors from the last 25 years, not the last 6. It's about us setting us a path for the next 25. This is a budget that is inevitable, and it's a budget that Thurrock needs. This budget moves us forward to being a council still with a below average council tax, but much improving. While still adding funds to the budget, we need to deliver to what the people did as the services we need to deliver and be honest with. Thurrock has always had a tax that's too low to pay for the services we need to deliver for local people. Some of that
So the members will be heard when they're speaking. If not, I will have to suspend the meeting and clear the gallery. Clear the council.
Some of that is the fact that average homes here are band C and not average band D, which the rest of the country works on. Some of that was about successive administrations unwilling to increase council tax. Some of that is about the government incentives for us not to increase council tax. But that's in the past. Our decision tonight is a simple one. Do we make a modest increase and keep the cheapest council tax in Essex and nearly the lowest in the nation, and definitely the second lowest as a unitary authority after this budget increase? Or do we repeat the mistakes and have to have another £8.5 million worth of service cuts on top of what you see in front of you? Now, I understand that Labour have pledged to fight the council tax. So what are they going to do to repeat the same mistakes as the last 25 years? Keep us with low council tax, too low to maintain services? Have a fire sale and extra cuts? In the past, this has led to the ill-thought-out investment strategy to just keep the lights on here. We can't do that again. And I realise that. And that's why we've got to make tough decisions. And I said that when I become leader here. And this is one of them. Where I'm on the side of making tough decisions to fix this, if that means the issue and it's hard choices. This means we will grow the tax base and therefore make public services that we want to see delivered. Bins, elderly care, services, children's services, the things we value, that I live in the borough and I moved to the borough in the last 15 years. And I do hope you can all support me tonight.
Councillor Snell, the leader's reserved some of his time for you.
He has indeed, thank you. This is just some detail on the exceptional financial support. I am pleased to confirm that we received the confirmation of an exceptional financial support on the 1st of March, and this has come in the form of a minded to agreement from the Minister. The request has been through a process of approval, including with DLUC and the Treasury. The EFS is for 632.66 million, of which 180.17 million is support for 23-24. The 180.17 million is the support we require to meet the 23-24 deficit in the budget as presented here today, at page 72 of the budget report. Acceptance of this support will enable us to set a balanced budget. Let's be clear that the EFS support we have received is based on the budget that you see presented here tonight. Any increase to the EFS would need to go back to the Minister, which he may or may not be minded to approve. The EFS support is minded to approve support, and as you would expect, there is a considerable process to undertake before the Secretary of State can approve any capitalisation directions in respect of the above years. The Council will need to demonstrate that it continues to take the necessary steps towards improvement, and the Department and Ministers will require assurance from the Commissioners that the Council is making good progress against the Improvement and Recovery Plan as per the directions issued. At section 4.4, the progress against the directions is summarised. In some areas, there has been good progress, not least in the production of a Treasury management strategy and compliant minimum revenue provision policy. However, there remains considerable challenges ahead. Specifically, whilst balanced for 23-24, this budget does not enable Thurrock to get financial sustainability from the 1st of April 2024, nor the years ahead. Considerable further work and creativity will be required within Thurrock Council to ensure it achieves the position we're all working towards, which is that of financial sustainability. It is also the case that, given the scale of the challenge, inevitably it will be necessary to continue to seek exceptional financial support from the Minister to Government beyond this request to 23-24. Those discussions with Government for that period will commence if this budget is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Member for Finance. Leader of the Opposition.
Mr Mayor, I'm suddenly starting to feel really old. I'm old enough to remember when the Conservatives used to think that being a low council tax authority was a good thing. Mr Mayor, this year's budget setting council meeting is very different. It's different both in tone and substance to that we've had in previous years. For instance, for the last 6 years, we have been asked to agree the level of council tax and the global budget envelope for the council. Every other decision on the budget had been delegated to the Cabinet. This year we're asked to do a little more. For instance, we're asked to vote in support of a range of savings proposals that come to just over £8 million. Unfortunately, Mr Mayor, we only learnt that we would be asked to vote on this savings package at 7:15 last night. There are 70 proposals here, and it may be that there are specific proposals that we would be able to support. But there is very little detail as to just what each proposal entails. There's no impact assessment for any of the proposals, and neither are there any risk assessments. Without any of that information, we cannot support recommendation number 8. Mr Mayor, when I went to Cabinet last week, the leader made a great play of telling us that this budget is somehow a fresh start, that somehow he and his cronies are nothing to do with the council's catastrophic financial situation. So let's be clear. They have overseen the greatest financial crash of any council in Britain ever. Their toxic Tory debt stands at very nearly £1.5 billion. The losses on their dodgy investments stand at £275 million. There's a funding gap of £469 million in this year's budget. The shortfall for next year's budget is more than £180 million, and we will be spending £49 million next year on debt interest payments. And as we've learnt tonight, we can only set the budget relying on £632 million of exceptional funding from government, which is likely to be a capitalisation direction. In other words, treated as a further loan. Far from being a fresh start, Councillor Cockshall and his deputy have sat in the Cabinet for every single day since May 2016. They've been at that top table and taken crucial decisions as this financial disaster has unfolded. Frankly, Mr Mayor, his claim that he is somehow a fresh start is like the arsonist who set fire to your house reappearing saying, "It's okay, I'm back, and I've brought a bucket of water with me." Mr Mayor, it just won't wash. The leader also last week made a plea for all members to, as he put it, to be responsible. And I agree with that. I've always taken my responsibilities as a councillor extremely seriously. I led the council for 6 years. And in that time, we set a balanced budget and returned a surplus every year, despite government funding being cut by around £64 million over that period. At the same time, we increased reserves by 300%, council tax low, and when we left office, council borrowing stood at £345 million. It is frankly galling to be lectured on responsibility by Councillor Cockshall. When we did the responsible thing and raised at an extraordinary council meeting our very real concerns about their disastrous borrowing investment activities, rather than act in that responsible way, they did nothing but ridicule and try to belittle us for having the temerity to question them and raise our concerns. We were told we were sanctimonious and disingenuous. We were a complete embarrassment and a disgrace. Councillor Coxall himself told us that he really enjoyed the meeting, saying that he loved sitting here. I couldn't chuckle to myself enough. That is scarcely acting in a responsible way. They sanctioned spending £70,000 in fighting through the courts to keep the details of their investments secret by refusing to answer freedom of information requests. That wasn't acting in a responsible way. They continually voted to end council meetings before all business had been completed, to avoid answering difficult questions or allowing motions to be debated. That wasn't acting in a responsible way. They removed opposition chairs from scrutiny committees in year, and this year refused to offer so much as the vice chair of a scrutiny committee. Again, that is not acting in a reasonable way. And whilst we await the outcome of the best value inspection, the progress report that was published on the 13th of December last year also takes a view on just how responsible they've been. On their borrowing and investments, it says, the income from this strategy allowed local political leaders to forestall or avoid difficult decisions on raising council tax for several years. It said that Thurrock Council built the revenues from high-risk investments into its base budgets and allocated surpluses to fund short-term political priorities. And it said that clean it, cut it, fill it regularly dominated the attention of leading members and senior officers and had become a yardstick for how success is measured. And whilst these matters are of course important, they have provided a distraction from more challenging concerns. None of that, Mr Mayor, suggests that this has in any way been a responsible administration. But now they lecture us on the importance of acting in a responsible manner and of supporting a 10% increase in council tax, a modest increase according to the leader of the council. That 10% increase would bring in around £8 million. 1.6 million of that is the adult social care precept, which we support, leaving £6.4 million extra for services. However, Mr Mayor, we're told at paragraph 11.2 of tonight's agenda that the costs of intervention come to £6.2 million a year. So practically every penny raised by their 10% council tax hike will be swallowed up by the costs of dealing with their failure. And it isn't, Mr Mayor, the residents of Thurrock that crashed the council, and they shouldn't be penalised with a 10% hike in their council tax. And alongside that punitive council tax increase are over £8 million worth of service cuts and increases to fees and charges. The cuts and increases listed aren't enough to balance the books, so we're told we'll have to find a further £4 million of cuts by the summer, and fees and charges will have to be increased, again, almost immediately. And Mr Mayor, I close by saying this. We all live here in Thurrock. We all care about the place, and more importantly, we all care about the people that live here. We all want Thurrock to be the best that it can be. But the truth is, the Conservatives have broken Thurrock Council with their catastrophic management of the finances, which has resulted in bankruptcy and the largest ever financial crash of any council in Britain. We cannot change history, and the people of Thurrock will have to live with the consequences of this Conservative disaster through higher council tax and fewer and diminished frontline services for years to come.
Leader of the Council.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll respond on some of them before I let in all the members speak tonight, because I think it needs to be, all 49 still need to hear us. But let's be clear that not Cabinet decides the investment strategy of the Cabinet. That was in a budget in 17, 18, 19 and 20. And, well, 3, maybe 4 of them years, the Labour Party voted with us to invite that. All members here voted with that. And that's my point. It didn't come to Cabinet. It wasn't a Cabinet who decided that. Members here decided that. At one point, I think it's in less than 2 minutes in 2019, we decided. Now, that is what I talk about, is how we have to look at ourselves and what we did at that point and how we ask. And that's 49 of us, all of us voted for that, not just the Conservatives. We all voted for that. And that is the problem. Now, I understand that, and he makes the point about me in Cabinet. I think Councillor Kent knows that. He wasn't the leader then. I understand that. And he wasn't the leader of your group then. What you're doing, when you work together, we want to be working together inside these groups, and you abide by what we were doing. That was the decisions then of that decision, and quite rightly, the Cabinet Member for Finance made some decisions, recommended these decisions under the right authority. If you look at what there is, we have now found out the MTFS, is it? MLP was not correct. All of us voted on that 3 times. Now, that's what we've got to look at, and why did that happen? And that is the important thing. And turning it into, throwing it a partisan and making this, I completely understand it's 6 weeks to go to an election and you want to do that. Fair enough. But that's not going to solve the issue here. And I take responsibility for the decisions I made. Let's make sure you take the decisions you made on this meeting.
Councillor Kerrin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's very interesting hearing about a brand new start, hearing about correcting errors, because we're still making the same errors, because it's not things that just happened in the past. This meeting wasn't even meant to be tonight. This is meant to be last week. Last night we got given at 6:45 new proposals. This is not the way to run things. It's not the way to do things, and you can't just say that this is all in the past, this is 25 years ago and all that sort of thing. It's not fair to be running the council this way. And to use the language of a modest 10% increase in council tax. Modest. It depends who you're asking who it's modest for. If it's modest for you, then you should be very pleased that your circumstances make it modest. But for the majority of people out there, the people in the chamber, the people out there, the people around Thurrock, it's not a modest rise. 10% is not modest. If you think that it's modest, then well done. Good for you. Okay? And what you need to be thinking about every single day is how the decisions that are made in here are going to affect our residents out there. Think about it and start running things better, because if we carry on the way we are, this council will cease to exist. And there'll be residents who, when we get to that point, will probably be pleased that it's happened. Think, do better.
Councillor Spillman.
I mean, it was very easy for me, as someone who wasn't in this group or in Cabinet when a lot of these financial decisions were made, to say, not my fault, Gov, like these guys. But I take full responsibility for the decisions that were made during that period. Yeah? And that's the difference. Because we all voted on those investment strategies. And this is the truth. And I mean, I can see one of the members, was one of the leaders, the former leader before her, was one of the cheerleaders for the investment strategy. This is the joke of it. It's absolutely disingenuous. Now there's no doubt that members have been repeatedly misled in the reports that have been presented. I was repeatedly misled, the opposition were repeatedly misled, and the group was repeatedly misled. But the buck stops with us, yeah? And that means all of us. Anyone who voted for that investment strategy needs to own it. And that's the difference between this bench and the benches over there. Now, I get it, they've become a populist mess over there, and all they care about is saving their own necks, yeah? And that's the truth. All you care about is saving your own necks, yeah? But the problem is that the message you take to the doorstep, is this vacuous populism, yeah? We are taking a plan to the doorstep. And we'll see in May how the public feel about it. Now, this council has a huge structural deficit. If you do not act tonight to do something about this, there are 2 reasons for you not doing it, yeah? You're either believing unicorns and fairies, or you're utterly opportunistic, yeah? Now, I think, Councillor Kent is a member of some standing in this chamber, and I would appeal to him to do the responsible thing and vote to close that structural deficit, because that's what I will be doing today. We spend more than we earn, even before any of the debts, any of the impairments are taken into account. This council has no future unless that structural deficit. Now, I hope I appeal to the leader of Labour. I'm not sure anymore since he was knifed in the back through their psychodrama in the summer. I mean, he has traitors to the left of him and traitors behind him, doesn't he? But I do hope that the leader of the opposition shows the sense that he has in the past and acts responsibly on this matter. Because as it is, he's voting for the abolition of this council, and I don't believe he actually wants that.
Councillor Shane Ralph.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think some people actually grasp the full extent of what has happened. When we look, Labour were in the same meeting with the commissioners as we were. They were told that the lower optional council tax was not on the table and 9.9 was the minimum what we could do. They heard that, we were told that, and we were told there would be consequences if we did not approve this budget. Those consequences, what we fear, could be collapsing the council, mass redundancies, moving us into London. Well, it may be good, but you'd be paying ULEZ charge then, wouldn't you? Because that's what'll happen. So, you may have it. The leader of the opposition has just done a great audition to be the next pantomime dame, because he's passing you a load of stories. He has got a video that Neil Spate put out on his channel of him where he started investment and then the years after that praised the Conservatives for continuing his investment. He's very proud. Fraser Massey stood up and turned around and said, Mayor, can I have some order, please?
Right, we're not going to...
Thank you, Mayor.
I'll continue.
Fraser Massey stood up and turned around and said, it is not for councillors to know where the money is. That's what we pay officers for. Gary Byrne turned around and said, let's do more. It's great when it's other people's money.
Gary Byrne
Thank
stood
you.
up and read out the CV
Sorry,
of Liam
Councillor
Kavanagh
Byrne,
and told
Councillor
you to be
Byrne,
careful before you even
Councillor
judge
Byrne.
it. Bringing my name into it.
Resume your seat. You will get a chance to speak. Councillor Worrell.
Say we didn't agree the borrowing strategy. We agreed borrowing limits. They were limits, they weren't targets, right? Not only did you go through the target, you went through the ceiling. I didn't speak over you, shut up.
Yeah, you too.
We promised transparency, for instance, no investment of more than 10 million. You smashed it. Yes. For more than 10 years, you withheld all groups. You didn't tell any groups what was even happening. We fought to get anything out of you. You wouldn't tell us nothing. We borrowed to invest, but they was reported. They was in open session in Cabinet. That's the difference between our borrowing and you. You hid your investments. I have to cover that, Mr. Mayor, because they can't get away with that. But it won't come as no surprise that I'm not standing here tonight to support your 10%. This financial disaster was not caused by those residents of Thurrock, yet the Cabinet, supported by their backbenchers tonight, genuinely believe that it is okay to pay for the residents to pay the price for your financial incompetence. It is unbelievable that the Deputy, the Leader and the members of the Cabinet have stated in public meetings and across social media, I see Councillor Spillman's one today, that the financial disaster is partly down to Thurrock residents who have been able to live above their means because of low council tax bans here in Thurrock.
James, can I dispute that? Mr. Mayor, can I
Yes,
dispute
I've got
that?
the screenshot.
Go on then, I'll read it
Yeah,
out. Read it out then. Read it out.
How dare any of you blame one of those residents for the financial disaster? This mess lays clearly at your door. My resident wrote to the government office.
Mr. Mayor,
They responded, the financial situation is a result of financial failures in local leadership governance and financial mismanagement. They went on to say Thurrock requested special permission for the flexibility to raise the council tax above the referendum limit of 4.99%. Nowhere did they say it was because my resident had low council tax spending that we are in this financial mess. So it has been a political choice to raise it by 10%, and one that I will not be supporting. But it gets worse, Mr Mayor, and near Miss Councillor Clerk, so I'll explain to you what you don't understand. Even at this late stage, there's still mistakes. Last week, the Cabinet agreed one set of recommendations, yet tonight we've got different recommendations. Yet they are completely different. Councillor Coxall, your eye for detail is simply shocking. Neither yourself or one of your Cabinet members picked up that your statutory votes on the budget were down to note and not to support. Councillor Coxall, you even got a show of hands to note the items on the Cabinet agenda, and your Cabinet raised their hands. They had clearly not read or understood the recommendations either. It is this level of sloppiness that has walked this council into the financial disaster you now expect the residents of Thurrock to clear up for you for decades to come. To conclude, Mr Mayor, I will not be voting to support recommendation 8, another one that Cabinet voted to note for last week. I am not confident that there has been sufficient impact assessments on the cuts to services in the papers tonight. I wonder, do the Cabinet members even know what they've agreed to in those cuts? No. Mr Mayor, the youth service will be a statutory services only. You yourself came through Youth Cabinet. Labour has a candidate this year who came through Youth Cabinet, grew up in Thurrock and is at university studying a degree in politics. Where are our future young politicians coming from if we axe everything available to the young people of Thurrock? I don't need to say a word more because you should be ashamed.
Yes.
Point of it. Councillor Spillman, point of order.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, point of order, I'd like to ask you to withdraw that statement because she's misled the chamber.
I've got it.
So what I said was, who is blaming the residents, Fiona? The structural deficit is entirely the responsibility of many councillors over many years. I go on to say the council tax setting is entirely the responsibilities of councillors. Residents have no responsibility for these problems. I then go on to say this whole debacle is the responsibility of councillors. So I would hope that you would withdraw that because it is patently untrue.
Councillor Mays.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just want to start by saying that it isn't the residents' fault, and I don't think anyone should and could believe that, because it is the fault of councillors, as people are saying. And I think we've all had to come to the reality that everybody's played a part in this, and I think we've had to take responsibility for that. I am sad that you have not, but ultimately we have to. That's what happens. I have been torn with this decision. I didn't get into politics to vote for a 9.99% rise for residents. I really don't. There are people on the breadline. I really don't want to see it. It is something that I have wrestled a lot with. And I sat in a meeting, and I believe you would have sat in the same meeting opposition as we did, where we were told there will be consequences, which I found to be a threatening term to elected members, which I wasn't happy with. When pushed on what them consequences could be, local government reform. Local government reform is pushing us into Essex, which is £400, I believe, more council tax, not 144, £400, or into London, which is the similar, because they're our neighbouring, we neighbour them. So if it's 22%, London or Essex, it's about £400 in that respect. So we were told quite clearly 5% doesn't exist, it's the end of the council. I don't want to be in a position where the end of that council, whether people think is right or wrong, is going to result in residents who are already in the breadline having £400-ish more to have on their council tax. That is not the right thing to do. And as a council, we have also voted through last month for £2.5+ million for staff salaries to go up to the NJC rise, which we all agreed, that's fine, that's a pressure. And that follows on this year. We've just sat there and agreed an extra 4% extra pressure on that cost. We've got a £4 million additional pressure on adult social care, and that will keep rising year on year on year. Without raising the council tax base, my fear is that what are we delivering for Thurrock? Exactly. 5% doesn't deliver enough. So, therefore, I will be supporting 10% after wrestling with my thought process, because 5% will actually be the death of this council. And I think I've got kids in this borough, I've got family in this borough, I've got friends in this borough, I live and work and play in this borough, and ultimately I want the best for it. And if you can sit there and say 5% is enough, then you're making the same mistakes that you made when you froze it, you're making the same mistakes when you didn't rise it, because ultimately, if you don't rise it, well, the thing is, if we didn't bankrupt the council, if we didn't do the investment strategy, which we all agreed, I think we've got there, we would have a much higher base of rate if we actually did the right thing and raised our council tax. So if you can sit there now and say, I'm not going to raise council tax because it's popular and I want to win seats in May, then the reality is, it's after May. And something that Councillor Kerrin said, do the right thing for the future. If you do the right thing for the future, you'll have a higher amount to spend on things such as the Thameside or an equivalent or other services or youth services that we can't afford with a low council tax base. So, well, how can we... Well, the thing is, though, we raise the council tax base, we can get better in the future. If you don't raise the council tax base, you cannot. So, well, that's up to you.
Councillor Massey. Councillor Massey's turn. I like hearing Councillor Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to keep it quite short and sweet. I know everyone wants to have a say on the budget. Firstly, I don't believe we would have this budget in front of us if it wasn't for the failure of the investments. I do recognise we would still have challenges, but even without the solar investments, the other investments into companies such as wood chipping companies, power generating companies, business loans and finance firms, the amount invested would still be close to an entire year of annual budget. I personally still have unanswered questions from nearly 2 years ago regarding some of these investments, and that was many monetary officers ago as well. But I can safely say that ship has sailed. What has gone on regarding the council finances is both alarming at the scale of the issues and worrying to the timescale involved to get to a point of normality. And the difference between the percentages is money out of the public's pockets, which are already facing pressures at the cost of living. The number one worry when speaking to residents is to be paying more and getting less. They're also concerned that the amount is more than what would usually be allowed without a public referendum. I share this concern. I will support the adult social care, as I have done in previous budgets. The pressures are clear for all to see, and we have to protect those important residents and services in our communities. I will support also an increase to the normal referendum limit, not one that's been specially arranged by the government. Thank you.
Councillor Collins. Councillor Gary Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to the opposition. Paper's missing here. Thank you. Yeah, none of us really want to do a 10% increase in rates. So it was down to you to come up with a properly costed alternative budget where we could keep it at 5% and still keep all services. I haven't got it here. Where is it, please?
Councillor Apothecary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies. Sort of
Thank you.
harked back a little bit there. Apologies for that. I just want to briefly, because I think we are in danger of falling to some myths, and there's been some myth spinning from the Conservatives tonight. So I just want to kind of put that to bed immediately. And best of luck to Councillor Spillman, of course, on his ambitions his rather naked ambitions, shall we say. So there is obviously this contentious issue about what Labour agreed to and what Labour didn't. What I can tell you is that through that entire period, we fought for transparency and openness. Yes, we did.
Oh, okay,
yes, we
let's
did.
let Councillor Apothecary.
Through corporate O&S,
Councillor
at
Apothecary.
full council, we
Councillor
consistently...
Apothecary, just a moment, please. Can we let Councillor Apothecary get through her speech? Councillor Apothecary.
We consistently asked over those 6 years for greater transparency, for an investment board, so we could scrutinise those investments. It's not rubbish, it's a matter of public record. It's a matter of public record. So, you know, you can go back through the streams of... I mean, it's incredibly misogynistic,
both sides to be,
but, you know...
to be respectful. Councillor Byrne, Councillor Byrne. Councillor...
You never sat on corporate O&S.
Councillor Apothecary has the floor. No one else should.
So just to be
Councillor
really,
Apothecary.
really clear, if anybody wants to go and fact-check this, you can go back and watch the O&S, corporate O&S records. You can look at the minutes. You can look at what we said at full council. You can look at the repeated attempts we made to ask you to put in more transparency so that we had some kind of oversight. We had no idea where this money was going. You wouldn't tell us. You cut us out. When we started asking awkward questions, you took corporate O&S chairs away from us and put your cronies in who would just nod things through. And there were meetings, private meetings that are not on record, but there are meetings where you were challenged. Your leader was challenged. Wouldn't accept there was a problem, wouldn't accept there was an issue, wouldn't accept because we're not investing in shopping centres, so that it's all fine. What? We challenged them about this building repeatedly because it's a waste of money, no one wants it and it's not functional. Repeatedly, we challenged you. Repeatedly, we wanted you to give us more information. We didn't know what was going on, and we tried and we tried. We are the opposition. You have a majority. You've had a majority for some time. I don't like that fact. I've never liked that fact. But you've had it. The power was yours. You wanted it. You got it. You did what you did with it. You have to accept responsibility. Not only, it doesn't sound like it. You're sitting here trying to blame everyone else. And you blame officers for lying to you. Yeah, officers certainly lied to me, and I've got that as a matter of record. However, you enabled those officers, you protected those officers, and you shielded them. When we were trying to challenge them, when we were trying to get stuff out of them, you shielded them. And then when we called that extraordinary meeting of this council to say, what is going on with the investment strategy? This is a mess. We need more information. You laughed at us. You laughed. And that, anyone in the public gallery can go and look at the live stream. They laughed. They sat there and smirked. You took the mickey out of us. You derided us. It is absolutely unacceptable for you to sit there and say, oh, well, you were agreeing with it all along, when that is not the truth. It is fundamentally incorrect. And when we were pushing and challenging and raising issues, you were laughing. Well, it ain't funny anymore, is it? And it's those people there and those people out there. It's my daughter who should be performing on that stage in a month's time at the Thameside Theatre that's going to pay for this. Well, is that you? Are you guaranteeing that? Is that your guarantee? Has Councillor Ralph got? Has he got the authority to make that promise?
Sorry, this constant.
These people would really like to know if Councillor Ralph is correct or not.
Councillor Gary Byrne.
Cool, how'd you follow that? Well, Councillor Ralph, you've read out about how I voted. Will you read out what I said about Liam Kavanagh on the night?
Councillor Byrne has the floor. Please allow Councillor Byrne to give his speech.
Yeah, please. Well, no, tonight's the Spinman show, isn't it? Anyway, the only good thing to come out of this mess is we're finally taking away the ex-leader's trumpet, stopped him showboating, and since September we've been allowed to take an active role at full council for the first time in 2 years, which has to be a good thing. Tonight, if we're being honest, It's total panto. If Councillor Cockshaw announced tonight residents could pay in cheese, we would see 30 blind mice over there voting for the cheese. There is no magic formula. Anyone who says otherwise is lying. This is with us for decades to come. Our revenue stream is now the residents, them, business, and the government. We're asking them to help bail out a bus business because of someone else's gross negligence with no say. They get no say whatsoever. If I'm being totally honest, speaking about Mr. Cockshaw, Councillor Cockshaw, if he doesn't go to 10%, he will be considered too weak for the job, have the rug pulled from under his feet, and Thurrock could soon be shortly be called EEC or a London borough. For the sake of our theatre, let's hope it's not Barking Borough. It's not a one-off 10%. Next year, we've been told it's as good as set as 10%, with likely to be 10% in year 3. And from now on, we will never see council tax go below 4.9. Councillor Cockshaw has his ex-leader Gledhill to thank for this, who I believe has booked a last-minute holiday to avoid the humiliation of tonight's proceedings. All this resulted in from events under his watch. Shameful not being here, leaving Councillor Cockshaw to carry the very heavy baggage he has left behind. Council tax is going up, denying these people a referendum. Tonight we'll see Conservatives voting in favour, allowing residents to continue paying the price for a total lack of financial nous and political games that go way back. The current problem camouflages mistakes of the past that leaves us short of millions of pounds of income. We've done it. The 0%, the crazy issues like 0% and wage freezes, tax freezes. The predecessors couldn't have been more financially naive. Millions of pounds of lost income for many years in the name of showboating for votes. That's when we should have been fixing the roof. This now leaves Thurrock residents paying catch-up with hefty increases instead of affordable baby steps, purely because politics took priority over any form of due diligence and forward planning. No one is coming out of this smelling the roses, that's for sure. Match our council tax to our neighbours. We're the lowest around. Interesting. Have you heard of a place called Basildon? Yeah. It comes up when Councillor Snell sets it in his sat-nav when he's trying to find fobbing. Basildon council tax. Yeah, we pay a bit more than them, but Basildon has a sporting village, Olympic-sized swimming pool, gold medal training facilities, 2 theatres, not the one you want to shut, they've got 2. Schools like Lee Chapel, stations, not demolition sites. And they've got a hospital. They've actually got project managers who actually finish the project they start. This is like saying stay in a 3-star hotel but say the same price as a 5-star hotel next door. These Mickey Mouse justifications highlight the fact you're way, way out of our depth when it comes to finance. How can you expect us to vote on a budget tonight put out by a mix of ex-skippers, 2 unelected councillors and 8 jumpers? Members who are clearly out of touch with their residents, 29 of them hiding behind the only Conservative member who has had the decency to apologise for the previous leader's shortcomings and failure to communicate. Whew. So many residents are struggling who just cannot pay. They can't jump ship and collect a divvy in the process to make ends meet. Hoping to get a better one than that, but I keep picturing Hammond Tillman, our TBC's outsourced bailiffs, who would be banging on residents' doors, threatening to take their telly as they do, with debt piling, with bully boy tactics, all done with the blessing of TBC's debt management. We are told that our collection rate is very high. That's because you knock on the doors and frighten the life out of people. Any increase will see those abused by debt management grow in numbers, increasing mental health issues, the need for prescription medicine, and thoughts of suicide. If there was a working solution, it wouldn't come from tonight's meeting. This is all baloney. We are just going through the motions because its budget has to be presented. Anything but a no vote tonight is disrespectful to each and every resident in Thurrock. That's me done.
Councillor Duffin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Byrne did a really good job of touching on it in there of what are the decisions coming out of tonight. And there's effectively 2 options. One is to support the 9.9 9.99% increase. And the other...
Apologies, Councillor Duffin. Councillor Byrne, you need to turn your microphone off.
Sorry.
Thank you. Councillor Duffin.
And the other is a step into the unknown. Because what we know, if we don't pass that, is the exceptional support's gone. Thurrock Council is probably gone. And it's perfectly fine to want Thurrock Council gone, but have you actually explained to residents what that means? Because there's two realistic options. Let's not pretend like we're going to end up in Kent or something else. It's to go and join Essex, or it's to go and join London. And by all means, we got the explanation at last council meeting that you've got no issue with ULEZ over there. So is it the fact that you want the 20% council tax increase and become part of Essex Borough, Essex Council? And we heard from Council that they've got some nice stuff. So by all means, if residents want to go that route, let's go that route, and you can make the case to commissioners and other people that you want to be part of Essex. Or you might want to be part of London. Let's have the 40% council tax rise. Let's have ULEZ in Thurrock. Let's go for all this stuff that you might want. That is the fact. So either you can be disingenuous, or you can stand up and go, we don't have a clue what's going on. We've sat with commissioners and not bothered asking the important questions. But there is a decision to be made here. It's 9.99, or it's let's just stumble around in the dark, try call the government's bluff, try call commissioners' bluff, let's go into special measures, get rid of Thurrock Council, and then go into whichever of the two you want. But that's not a decision we'll get to make as councillors, because we'll be gone. It's not a decision residents will get to make, and that is the very real risk that you can run. And by all means, as politicians, fight an election. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Hey, you can run around and stick on a leaflet, Thurrock Council no more, the Tories' fault, etc. But that's the danger of voting for under the 9.99%. So take that on, and by all means, if you want to go for the 40% council tax rise, so we're not talking about 9.99, 40%, and ULEZ, and all the cost implications of that, that is very realistic. The idea that everything continues and, oh, we just vote for 4.99, two fingers up to the government, this money that is going to appear in special circumstances is going to magically appear somewhere, is just not based in any realm of reality. So by all means, stand up and make the case of which one of the two you want to join, or quite frankly, just stand up and admit it's politics to you. You don't genuinely care about what happens next to Thurrock when there is no Thurrock Council remaining. Those are the two choices. Own it and stop crying.
Councillor Abbas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be supporting this because this is a practical and responsible decision to support this budget and increase. Despite the increase, we will still be able to retain the lowest council tax in Essex. This will also help us putting more money than ever into compassionate funds to help and support those who will not be able to pay and to provide better support to our vulnerable residents. Opposition are supporting ULEZ charges on our residents, but have no plans for this budget. It's time to make difficult but sensible decisions and not to play politics. Let's support this budget and reset Thurrock for good. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs. Arnold. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Labour started the investment in solar farms idea. Labour leaders are publicly recorded saying they're glad that we, the Conservatives, have continued Labour's borrowing to invest policy. And an independent councillor is recorded publicly saying it's not our job as councillors to worry about where the investments are. As councillors, we need to put our trust in officers. Am I sorry for my part in this? Yes, absolutely, I'm sorry. And I've spent every day since trying to make things better. But my mum would say, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. I've been a councillor. I've been a councillor for just over 7 years, and many of you in this chamber have been here for 10 years and more. So that makes you just as responsible as us for the too low tax base to work situation that Thurrock finds itself in, whereby there's not enough income from council tax to pay for the services we need. Let's face it, that's why the opposition started us down the road of investments in the first place, to try and fill the gap.
Hectoring from the public gallery has got to stop. I'm allowing both sides to be heard. Councillor Hugh.
That's actually a matter of public record that, as Councillor Pothecary says, you can look it up for yourselves. A gap that is now running at £18 million. Today isn't about playing politics. We've been playing politics for 10 years. This whole chamber played politics. We chose not to put up Thurrock's tax rate by referendum limits each year. If we had, we'd be filling that gap and not having to make up for the past. If all parties had done the job right, we wouldn't need what seems like a huge jump now. We have the lowest tax rate in Essex. Even with this tax increase, Thurrock will still have the lowest tax rate in Essex and the second lowest in England. Councillor Cockshaw has had some incredibly difficult decisions to make to keep Thurrock viable, and this is one of the hardest, and believe me, it really has been one of the hardest. But he deserves our support, faith and trust in his leadership. The Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State, Lee Rowley, has praised his new leadership and agrees Thurrock needs to raise its tax base like this. It's the right thing to do. It's the only thing to do.
Councillor Redsill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to stand up, but sometimes you get the feeling you've got to do something. It's electioneering at its worst. I've try and remember back in 2003 when Labour put the council tax up 20%. I found that hard then. And I've had a bad week. When we see in this chamber, with people laughing and us laughing, it's not a laughing matter and it's definitely not a joke. Can you be quiet, please? Thank you. It's not a joke. Whoever's fault it is, and we know whose fault it is, just wait a minute, will you please? Who's accountable? People will be accountable for it. Well, if you let me finish. Do you want to come in here? Do you want to come in here? James.
Sorry, I'm going to clear the gallery. We're not having people shouting
Please.
councillors while they're making speeches. This is the last time. Councillor Redsill.
I've been a councillor nearly 20 years and I've done my best for my residents and beyond. And I have found the last couple of weeks really hard for what my decision will be. 4.9 doesn't bring in a balanced budget, so I don't know what the other side are going to do. And Councillor Collins was right. You haven't come up with anything that will solve it. We know we have a problem with that money, investment money, but the council tax, perhaps we have done wrong over the years and not put it up. We've tried to give residents having the lowest council tax, and perhaps that's what we did wrong. Perhaps 1% should have gone on every year, but we've tried to keep it low. But you have to buy things within the council. You need new trucks for refuse collection. You need new, everything needs new. So I've had real trouble with this, and don't think I haven't, because I think 4.9 doesn't bring in a balanced budget. 2% is for our social care, and I don't want social care to suffer. We're all going to need social care at some point in time in this borough. So I think we've got to stop the jokes and the laughing and get on with it and pull together. That's the only way we're going to get anywhere in here, is to pull together. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor John Allen.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, please. I haven't had
Collins.
an answer to my question. I have asked for a properly costed budget.
Questions can't
Where
be
is
asked
it?
during debates.
You're like, Councillor Kent, you're like the Moses to your people. Show them the big shining light. Give them the 5%.
Councillor Collins.
And so we can stay on a special
Councillor
measures.
Collins.
Come on,
Councillor
Councillor
Collins,
Kidd.
it's not a point
Show
of
us your
order.
ideas.
Councillor Collins is not a point of order. Councillor John Allen. What is your point of order? Everyone is behaving in an ill-tempered way. Now, Councillor Byrne, this is not a point. Councillor Byrne, this is not a point of order. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can just state that we know for a fact that, you know, this 9.99% is going to be passed tonight because the administration has got more in numbers. Even if we reject the 9.9%, you know, which I will be doing, I'm afraid, because, you know, times are very hard for people. They're really feeling the pinch. Some families, Thurrock families, are, you know, finding it hard monthly to make ends meet. And this is going to put more added pressure on them. And you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm feeling quite emotional about it. And, you know, we've got serious mental health in the borough. And this is driving people even further into desperation. You probably won't know, some of you will know, I'm a council tenant myself. And I believe Councillor Rolfe is as well. So we're certainly going to be feeling it. I've already had my letter through yesterday with the increase of rent. The increase of council tax will follow, putting, you know, further pressure on outgoings. You know, it seems to me that you know, you're solely blaming the senior officers for making the decisions or putting all the investment strategy in one basket in solar farms. Now, if you did do due diligence at Mr. Kavanagh, you probably would have found that it wasn't a very good investment strategy at all. But you were in administration at the time and you were cabinet members. So why did you not question or scrutinise the senior officers making really huge, transferring huge amounts of money from the council coffers, knowing, or ideally knowing if we did do that due diligence, that it wasn't a very good investment at all with this gentleman. And you're also blaming all councillors for supporting the investment strategy. Now, year after year, when we sat in the other chamber in the old building, we had your cabinet member for finance deliver financial reports year on, year out, telling us that we were in good order, there was money in the pot, and we were doing well on our returns of that investment. But someone was telling lies. Now, was the cabinet member reading from script what was prepared for him by senior officers, which was not only misleading all us councillors, it was misleading everyone, further and further into debt. Now, someone mentioned that someone needs to be held accountable for this. Absolutely. Now, who's that going to be? I rest my case.
Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's very important to realise that the second lowest council tax in the country is not sustainable. Well, it's the truth. Thank you, Councillor Cockshaw. So we can continue to just blame each other. It was a collective decision of all 49 3 times to have this decision. We all bear responsibility. Even those like myself who were elected after these votes have taken place bear responsibility for not doing enough. Everyone needs to reflect on that. We need to reflect as the party that was in charge for the majority of this time, and they need to reflect as the pioneers of this strategy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 5 years ago, I was elected as a councillor, and I'm prepared to stand here and take responsibility for what happened. And I was only elected 5 years ago. And many of you over there were elected a long time before that. And you're not prepared to take the responsibility, like all 49 should, for what has happened. None of us are blaming residents. None of us have said that it's residents' fault, which Councillor Worrell has claimed that we have. We haven't, and I think that's been made. Cabinet didn't. We haven't. But I think, like many of my colleagues have said this evening, in particular Councillor Duffin, there's a stark choice this evening. None of us want to see council tax raised by 10%. Why would we? We didn't come into this job to put additional taxes on people, but we have to be sensible. We have to be responsible. Failure to put the council tax up by 10% tonight will result in services being cut and jobs being lost. The jobs that our residents do at the moment, they're not people that live outside of Thurrock, they're our residents, they're our neighbours, they're our friends, they're our families. They will lose their jobs. The other thing that will happen, and Councillor Duffin alluded to this, and so have some of my other colleagues, is that we will either go to Essex or we'll go to Greater London. Now, I know you lot quite like the ULEZ charge, but it won't just be the ULEZ charge. It won't just be the ULEZ charge that's dumped on the residents of Thurrock. It will be a 40% increase in council tax and probably a congestion charge. So no, I don't want to inflict that on the people of this borough. The alternative is to go into Essex, and we all know that's at least another 20% rise in council tax. So do I want to see 10%? No, I don't. I'd like to be lower. But what I will not do is vote for a rate that will see the abolition of this council and people, the residents of this borough, inflicted with a 20, 30, 40% in rise and the ULEZ charge.
Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think what should be clear to every sitting councillor here this evening that the question's not, do we just agree on a budget, but do we want Thurrock? Do we want Thurrock to survive as a sustainable council and be sustainable going forward? The cumulative cost of income lost over a decade of both red and blue administrations failing to make good, tough decisions when it comes to council tax has actually cost us tens of millions. Each administration preferring to fall back on that "we're the cheapest in Essex" line. Well, guess what? Even with this proposed increase, we still are. However, and more importantly, we can put Thurrock back on a secure financial footing by ensuring that this council tax increase is embedded into a cumulative growth which allows us to keep pace with the cost of our services. In short, Mr. Mayor, this administration has learnt lessons and are changing the culture of this council with a plan to reset Thurrock and make it fit for purpose now and for future years. A plan that I don't see coming from any opposition members. In fact, all I see is scaremongering, because something was mentioned about my own portfolio. A councillor stands up and says, we're axing youth provision. Well, the council's duty is to ensure there is youth provision in the area, but not necessarily providing it. So get your facts right before you scaremonger, okay? Yeah. A vote against this budget, which increases our spending power by circa £8.5 million, is not a community-minded vote as suggested by opposition members in the press, their favourite place to go. As truth be told, a vote against this budget will see Thurrock fall and council tax raised immediately by some 22% to just reach the Essex mean, or as we've said earlier, over 40% plus ULEZ if swallowed up by London. And mark my words, that is a distinct possibility if this budget falls. We know the council tax increase will be difficult for some households, and we are creating a new hardship fund, which will go a long way in ensuring help is available to the most vulnerable by stopping them from being pushed into that unnecessary financial hardship. However, some changes in this budget may not be covered by a hardship fund, such as the cessation of the subsidised bus routes, which affect my ward particularly. So whilst I will be supporting this budget, I will continue to work with whomever I can to find a solution to the bus conundrum. So to finish, Mr. Mayor,
I would ask all councillors in this room to agree with this necessary budget and stop playing political games, as not only will the people of Thurrock, remember there's 170,000 of them, they'll see right through it, but you'll be putting those same people in a much darker financial place than they already are. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All I'll say is this: no one, and I mean no one, believes a word any of you say.
Councillor George Cockshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I think I may be the baby of this chamber, but that may be up for debate. But this is the crux. I was elected last year as a councillor, and I deliberately take responsibility for what's gone on. Like, this is irrelevant. It's a matter for all 49 of us to own and move forward. But it doesn't make this decision any easier. I don't think going to my own doorstep to be told I should be in jail or I'm called scum, that isn't actually the way to actually have one of these discussions, because this is a tough decision for Thurrock. I don't want to be one of the last cohort of elected councillors for Thurrock. I'm proud to be a Thurrock councillor. I'd shout about it any time anyone asks what I do. I'm a councillor for Thurrock and I represent Bellas Ward. That is something to be proud of, and every councillor should be. But by choosing not to vote for the budget tonight and putting ourselves to say we're not going to accept the 9.99% means we can just give up. We're not going to see Thurrock here any longer. We can swan off and let Essex save us, or let London do its bit. I don't want that. I want to be the borough of Thurrock. And that is the only option I can see on the table tonight. Do we accept the 9.99 and have a go, keep Thurrock going, get ourselves back to stable financial governance? Or do we just, let's go home, let's not bother? That is not the answer. And I'll be really proud to support the leader of the council, Councillor Mark Cockshaw, tonight in his budget. I will name check him as Councillor Cockshaw the Elder. And you may laugh from the public gallery, but this is a tough decision, and we have to own it. The decision saying we're going to push people out into the hardship, it's brilliant. We've got a hardship fund here. There's over £600,000 that is a discretionary spending. It is designed for helping those who cannot afford to pay the increase. I just think, just to reflect, really, and I echo much of what has been said across the chamber. This is a start for Thurrock to move on. We have to make this decision tonight. And it seems to be only this side of the chamber is willing to make the tough decision, to make Thurrock live.
Councillor Chuckwoe. Councillor Chuckwoe.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. The cost of living is high. Energy cost is high. Inflation is high. Food cost is high. And yet, you want to increase the council tax for the people of Thurrock. It's not fair. Yeah, do you really love Thurrock? I'm asking the Tories. If you love Thurrock, this is not the time for you to increase the council tax. People are suffering. They cannot pay for the mistake you made. Thanks.
Councillor Shinnick. Councillor Shinnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say, as I was mayor, I used to sit there each month hearing you say that we don't have a vision. We cut it, fill it all the time, the potholes and cut the grass. But look where we are now. We're in a right mess. And for me, I could not back your decision to put the council tax up by 10% because it's your mistake and you should own it and not put it on us.
Councillor Snell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think clearly there's two different approaches tonight, isn't there? I mean, when I was bringing my kids up, and I always would say to them, I still do, I mean, they're 30-odd years old now, I still say the same things. If you make a mistake, you need to own that mistake, realise what you've done, and then you move on. That's the only way life can be. You can't live constantly referring back to the past when you've acknowledged the errors that have been made. Now, Councillor Coxwell, as leader, has apologised in numerous times on behalf of the group for the errors that were made. We've been there. We've done that. You've come here to this chamber and in other forums as well, and frankly, the things that you've come out with tonight are no different to the stuff you've come out with before. So, you know, it's not good enough. We appreciate, no one's in a position, we're not in a position where we want to be. Of course we're not. We acknowledge the problems though, and someone has got to start solving them. And it's no good. I don't know if the people in the public are aware that the opposition do get the option to, with officers, come up with an alternative budget. Have they done that? No. They haven't. So it's all very well to have a go at us for the plan that we've put together. Where is the alternative? There isn't an alternative. Everybody gets, every year, I mean, people might forget that I've...
Let Councillor Snell finish, please.
This is an important point. It's very, very easy to come and chuck accusations, stuff that we've heard before many times, by the way. This is nothing new tonight. And it's disappointing because, you know, every single year, all 49 come to the chamber and we vote on a budget, and it usually gets agreed. In fact, the only time I can remember a budget not being voted for by a party was when I was leader of UKIP and we voted against. But every other year, it's been agreed every single year. The investment strategy was agreed 3 years on the trot by everybody. It's not just us. No, exactly. No, it didn't work. Councillor, who was it? Councillor Massey said earlier that there's questions that is still unanswered. I agree, there are. We've all got... With the greatest respect, sir,
Get elected.
Everybody is entitled to acknowledge the mistake they've made and to issue an apology. Now, you might not like the apology.
Sir, for the final time, there will be no shouting from the gallery.
I can suggest
Snell.
that you've always got the option to join a political party, get elected and come into this forum and speak. But, wait, there has been no lies spoken.
All right, I'm suspending the meeting till the gentleman's removed.
There's a democratic process to do that.
Meeting resumed. Councillor Snell.
Well, say quite worrying for the Labour group. You pointed to them as well. But so look, no, we're not in a position we want to be in. But let me make one thing very, very clear. If we don't vote for the 9.99% tonight, what you will not see is Thurrock continuing on as it has been previously. The deficit that we've got in our budget gets worse. It doesn't get better if we go for 4.99. That means even if we just put to one side anything wrong with the investments, we cannot continue to provide the services that we currently do at the level we currently provide them. It's impossible. We need to get this money to be able to start in the right direction to put that deficit right. But beyond that, we need to do this to get the guaranteed exceptional financial support from government to help us solve the problems. We think we can solve the problems. It's going to take a few years, but at least we have a plan to try to do that. Now, you will get leaflets come through your door saying from the Labour Party, oh, well, we're all terrible people, we've made a big mistake. We've admitted the mistake over and over again. but we've also put forward a plan to resolve the issues. Labour and the independents are putting forward nothing apart from the destruction of Thurrock as it stands at the moment.
Excuse me,
If you want that, that's fine.
We haven't been
So,
asked. We wasn't
Councillor Byrne,
invited
it's
to
not
any
a point of
meetings.
order.
We haven't been asked.
Councillor Byrne, it's not
None
a
of
point
us
of
have been
order.
asked.
Councillor Byrne, resume
You're
your seat.
lying.
It's not a point of order.
None of us
Councillor-
have been asked.
Councillor Byrne! Councillor Snell.
Ooh. You're lying. None of us have been asked. We haven't.
You're asked every year. You're making your point. You're going to get to vote on the budget shortly, so you can make your point then. By the way,
Jamie, be quiet, please. Councillor Snell.
I would also like to say, actually, that Councillor Byrne made a very good job of saying how much better that Basildon services are than ours. Well, when you're paying £140 more, even after the rise in council tax for a Band D property than we are, that might explain some reason why they get better services than we do. And this is all the issue. As I said before, I will keep saying it. We have a plan. You might not like the plan, you might not agree with the plan, but let's see your plan. I've seen nothing at all. And it's no good going to the people of Thurrock and just chucking out accusations, random nonsense that you've been doing so far without a plan to make things better. Do that and I'll have a lot more respect for you. So for the time being, I'm going to support the 9.99 and I recommend everybody else do the same. Thank you.
Councillor Maney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things that I personally like doing is rather than talking to each other across the chamber, I much prefer rolling up my sleeves and getting on the doorsteps and talking to the people we represent, because I tend to find you get more sense. I've got to be honest, thankfully, the residents I've been speaking to are not a cross-section of what we're seeing in the gallery. Make no mistake about it, nobody tells you your fortune like an Aveley resident. But as I say, I've spent weeks talking to residents on their doorstep, and it's not been easy. But what is actually very clear is, yes, they want answers, but they actually want solutions. And I sat here waiting for it, and waiting, and waiting, and the fact is, it just isn't there. You know, the spokespeople have stood up and said a few words. I didn't quite know how I was going to follow Councillor Shinnick. She had me for a minute with her contribution, but, you know, I will speak. And the fact of the matter is, once again, we have seen no alternative, no plan, and you'll keep waving this bit of paper and say, we only got it last night. I remember a Labour budget where you didn't release the details until about 45 minutes before the meeting, and a cabinet member, incidentally whose wife's standing in Grays Riverside and keeps telling our councillor she's only standing to get rid of Councillor Kent, it's getting quite tedious now, that he said, oh, the Tories have got 45 minutes to make of our budget what they will. So don't complain about getting information the night before when you were quite happy to release it 45 minutes before a meeting. I'm not happy about voting for a 10% council tax increase, but Councillor Kent said, he did admit at the start of his speech he must be getting old. He is, because he's forgotten the 20% council tax increase he imposed when he was part of the Labour leadership on the people of Thurrock. His conscience wasn't pricked then. He wasn't worried about doubling an increase double the size of this one. So, look, it's not an easy night. This isn't going to be an easy set of elections, but we'll talk to residents on the doorstep, because quite frankly, that's where we're finding the sense. And they're not being taken in by your literature. Let me tell you that. They're simply not. It's Cole Morris, it's vintage Cole Morris. Let's wind up that old-fashioned Labour vote that isn't there anymore. They're sensible people looking for solutions. No one, not anybody, has mentioned your literature at all. They are looking for solutions. You don't offer it. The independent Labour group don't offer it. They just follow your lead. And they're looking for leadership. That is what we're going to provide. We're not hiding from the truth. We're apologised. We know we're part of it. But they're not looking at the independent Labour Party. They're not looking up
Councillor
and down
Byrne,
more
resume
times
your
than the
seat.
proverbial. Up and down more times.
Yeah, and you can call a valid point of order afterwards if you want.
You are. At least one of the independent Labour can speak. We're still waiting for the other one to say a word in 4 years. Tonight's the night. Let's hear it. No, you have to wait.
You have, the idea is you put your hand up, then get called to speak. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not making light of the situation. It is a serious situation. But the fact is, the residents want solutions, and you have nothing to offer. You're even nodding your heads. When I'm saying your literature isn't working, you're all nodding your heads, but you still follow the idiots at the top of your party. And the fact of the matter is, you know, I've got nothing really to say to you. I'm talking to the residents of Thurrock, who we owe answers to. No. Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. You've done a good job of wheeling out the local Labour Party. Yeah, we all think you're really residents. Yeah, okay. The reality is, we will explain ourselves to the residents of Thurrock, we will offer them our solution, and it's up to them whether they take it or not. You have nothing to offer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just be echoing the sentiments of many others, because unfortunately we're now finding ourselves in a very tricky position between a rock and a hard place. I've lived in Thurrock virtually all of my life, which is 50 plus years, and I don't want to see the demise of Thurrock. However, I'm here to represent my residents, not my own personal view, and my residents are not in favour of this rise. And the reason that is they only see it as they'll be paying off a Tory debt that's been acquired. I don't feel that the residents have been that well informed that we have had low council tax rises for many years. Had a letter gone out to residents explaining all of this, and maybe even offering them a referendum, you may have got them on side a little bit. There was no guarantee, but you may have got them on side a little bit. However, you haven't. So the information together with a referendum may have changed there, but as I'm voting on behalf of my residents, without a referendum, I cannot support your rise today. Thank you.
Councillor Cockshaw, do you sum up?
Well, I'll attempt to sum up of that exciting conversation, but I welcome and I honestly truly do mean that. Anyone who spoke on all sides tonight, it was welcome to hear these airs and these views. That is what democracy, local government democracy, and that's what makes you proud, whether the views and disagree with them or disagree with them. It's better than it to have it in this chamber here, opposite each other, than have a row and a fight and bits and pieces. And that's what makes me proud about being in this country, and it makes me why I moved to Thurrock. I saw the borough 13 years ago, and it was an exciting borough that I love to be in, and I moved to. Before any elections, and then I thought about getting elected to what's going to do during the day when there's no general elections, and I didn't expect general elections to come to a penny in the last 5 years, but there was a few years to gap, and I thought I'll come to the council and enjoy and help to give back to the community that I love here when I moved here. What I feel tonight is what we're trying to do is I'll go through some of the issues of what some of the members raised, and I'll try and bring them together in some sort of groups. The item you're talking about last night, I can only apologise that this is the prime ministemic thing about what you got last night was just a note, ungreed, and that, and it shouldn't happen, and I don't think it should happen, and I agree that, and I think that sort of things are systemic and we need to change. And I think that goes back to, though, why we get poor reports and poor members' updates is because we've cut back office so much and so much support of all our members and the people up there, we can't do the right work as members. Because it's easy to make sure council tax is low by taking out back office and we've got to get democratic services and membership working and making sure we work better here. And that's what one of our first pledges I said, that we need to make sure that members have the information to make decisions. Good or bad, you've got to have the information. And it's got to be good or bad information. We should not be keeping, back to Councillor Apothecary's point, and some others made that secrecy. I completely agree. If you think that it was terrible for them members of the opposition, it should not be. I can remember one night as a cabinet member, and I went to ONS because I couldn't have some issues resolved in myself as a cabinet member, and I asked ONS to actually do that work. I got a pushback. I turned up at ONS. I was refused to speak, because I couldn't do it myself, and I begged to the opposition if I could use that to push through some agendas and views in ONS. And that is what really hurt me. And I wanted this from say 11. I know many people over there have heard me. I've said the same thing for 10 years. We've got to work together to make sure we get a good council for our residents and the people we live in ourselves. And using ONS is what I went, regardless of party colours, that's what I want to do. And if I've got a cabinet member, I need to have that help. And that's what I wanted to do. And it was failure. I sat there all for 3 hours and wasn't allowed to speak. And it was hurtful, and it did hurt that I couldn't do that. And that problem carried on for another 3 years, when we could have solved it and used to unblock that problem. And that's what I think. And I'm very proud of the directions the government's coming over that. I talked to and I was really proud that changing the constitution working group. And I've worked with the mayor since last July about secrecy. When we couldn't get that, we set up the constitution working group, me and the mayor, in July last year. And I sat on it to try and see these issues. We immediately did some really good things, and I worked there. I think the mayor and myself and Councillor Warren was on that, and we made some immediate decisions, changes to full council because of Councillor Byrne. We didn't need an intervention to do that. We just took them on and did that. So I think Councillor Pethergree is absolutely right. Secrecy was at the heart of it, and I made that the first thing I said here, working for the 49 and being open and transparent. Otherwise, it's not worth being a councillor, and I'm not interested in it. But what I am interested in, and that's why it's 9.9, and I truly believe in it, is the survival of this council. I love the area. I want to stay in the area, regardless of that, and it's a great area and a great place to live. That's why I agree there. I want this secrecy. The youth service, I think my colleague just covered that. In meetings, I think now I've actually spoken to it's in there, but everything's in there for conversations. That's because we should talk about everything. We've said, oh, this is park this. We mustn't talk about issues. Let's talk about every issue. We talked about many a time, Councillor Worrell, we've had conversations over the last 6 months with me about the housing revenue account and what we should do about housing. Don't take nothing off the table, but there's some no-go areas. And youth provision is a very important youth provision. We must make sure there's some youth provision here. Because of that, and that's why I'm looking at an £8 million project in Tilbury. I was so excited to see where that is. I know we've got disputes over where it is, but it's a great opportunity for no cost at this council to see that we've got a great on-site coming to this council on youth. So then, you've got your time. You've ceded your time. It's my time. Now, let's do democracy properly. I speak, you speak. Yeah. So then, like, my group has been an issue. There's been issues inside groups, and people ask me about whipping and what we do about whipping. And that whipping, because if we go back, 17 councillors, and then 15, I think, Labour group they had, or was it lower than that? It may have been. I can't remember. They were running. But then in 2017 and 19, it was a marginal thing. We have to work together. When this started, these investment strategies, we couldn't get this through as a Conservative administration. We had to work with all parties to work through that. And I think Councillor Hebb worked continuously, making sure leadership groups and inside groups and that was a bravery we are start of our problems. Our group has owned up to that, and everyone here has had a go at me saying, why aren't you attacking the opposition? Because I want the opposition to understand their realities of what they did wrong and what they should be helping. And our group now understands that. I think we've got a narrow plan to move forward, and this is what tonight is about. What we're going to do is, Fraser, Councillor Massey, I completely agree with you, that your items there. You do need some more answers. The answers need to come. We don't get answers overnight. This has been September the 2nd I took over here. The commissioners have been here. The BVI still hasn't come out. And there will still be issues for many years. I can't promise 2 weeks, 3 weeks for you. This could happen in 2 years, 3 years' time. We got to still get that back. But don't read out me. For me, if I'm back here, we must make sure there is what's happened, and everyone must know. Because regardless of good or bad, for me as well, for anyone, if they know, we should make sure this never happens again. And it should never happen again with learnings here for the rest of the country as well about councils. Councillor Apothecary, Councillor Byrne, I thank you for your... I don't know if it was cack-handed or not. I don't know. It's a nice comment, but thank you. I'm glad you've seen, because you challenged me when we said, you say these words, change and prove it to me. And I'm trying to prove it, but we've still got a lot more work to do, as you saw, Councillor Worrell, about the mistakes of note to note and the issues we've got tonight. We've got to clean our act up, but that's our own fault, and everyone, we can work together to deal with that. Councillor Ritzel, I wasn't in the borough, and Councillor Maney, you mentioned the same. The 20% rise, wow, that was a big one, wasn't it? 20% in 1 year. That's twice the size of ours tonight. And no, was there adult social care for that? I don't think there was, wasn't it? It was all straight into the council tax. It wasn't straight ring fence, was it? So actually, if you take ours off, it's 7.99 in the council tax and 2% for adult social care. And in fact, the 2% for social care won't cover the adult social care bill because our most vulnerable need that money. And that's one of the problems of making a sustainable borough of Thurrock. And we've got to solve that issue. And all 49 of us and central government and us writing together to make sure central government sorts adult social care out is the most biggest issue that's coming down the line that we keep throwing down the line. Both political parties, I can remember the death tax in 2009. I can remember then the 2017 with, who was that man? I can't remember the last Labour leader then. It was a bit of a problem. Oh, he may be coming back. I hope he's Mayor of London soon. Right. Councillor Jenny Smith, thank you very much. That was a great speech. We should speak more often. It's sound and really helpful to listen to. Really important. And then Councillor Allen, the hardship fund is a really important fund. I think the hardship fund, and I think that now we haven't decided what to spend at, and if you look on the budget tonight, there's 650,000 over and above normal for that, ring fence for that money to make sure that we can make, and I'm worried, my personal worried, that we can't just give it to anyone who's on low income already. Anyone could lose their job, and council tax is the most important thing you should pay first. So that money should make sure that someone can ring up here and very much like that, and I'm really looking forward to working with everyone here to how we can deliver that hardship fund. And then, Councillor Shimmick, yes, you're exactly right. You're exactly right about your short-termism. I can only go there. I think there was, and that was, I banged my wall over this many a time. I think a briefing press about what the problems here are for 10 years. I think the short-termism has been a systemic issue, and that's why I want to correct that wrong, because we was only interested in the next election, the little wheeze. Both sides, let's be honest, I was in opposition thinking it was getting frustrated. We couldn't discuss the systemic corporate plans to deliver this, because we have a corporate responsibility. We have a corporate responsibility, not just to our wards, but the borough and the council, and them 2,000 nearly people working for us. And we forget that. And it's a corporate responsibility, and we need to actually think about more about that than actually just making sure we get elected next year. So with that, I'm going to round up. I think I may have missed anyone. I'm sorry. I was trying to write as much as I can. My son, I think I don't need to thank him. but some of the others, I think it was, I truly mean it was a very helpful debate and a very important debate tonight. But on roundup, I will move to what some of my esteemed colleagues have said on this side. I would happily listen to a budget from the opposition. I would really willing to come and say it. But on the background, can you point something out? Can you publicly tell me? As I said, my door's always open. I think we could have worked through something here. Sadly, there was dead air, spares, nothing. Connie, I begged the officers to come and speak to you. I made sure they would understand this. And we're seeing the same. We didn't see, Conservative group didn't see any different to anyone else. And I'm proud of that. Maybe the first time, I don't know. Anything was shown. We show everything. But what's happened tonight is so disappointing. So how will the opposition pay for social care and then vulnerable adults there if we don't go for this budget tonight? How will they pay for a theatre and keep that theatre open and we can work together like I've promised? That is a misinformation that we're closing the theatre at this point. There's been no decision to close the theatre. Like, how will we keep collecting them bins and make sure we can get a better bin service and make sure we're actually delivering that bin service? How can we pay our great frontline staff talking about delivering, cleaning them bins up, taking the dog profit, cleaning their streets, doing the work every day, making sure so no one's left alone or vulnerable, or the homeless on our streets? We can't do any of that without making sure that we got the finances and stability of this council. And what I see over there tonight in that is instead of that, they want to play to the gallery, or whatever gallery they want to pay to, because I don't know what that gallery is. And then, being no doubt, this is a choice of our average council tax rate and a sustainable council with the Conservatives, or political point scoring and imminent death with Labour in the opposition.
Thank you very much. I will now ask the Acting Chief Executive to walk us through the voting pattern, because it's a bit peculiar when it comes to budget votes. Mr. Wake.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good evening, members. It's proposed that we undertake the vote as follows. So, firstly, we will vote on recommendations 1.1 through 1.3 en bloc. These will not be recorded unless members indicate otherwise. We will then take individual recorded votes on recommendations 1.4 and 1.5. We will take individual votes on recommendations 1.6 and 1.7. These will not be recorded unless members indicate otherwise. We will then take an individual recorded vote on recommendation 1.8. We will vote on recommendations 1.9 and 1.10 en bloc. These will not be recorded unless members indicate otherwise. We will take an individual recorded vote on recommendation 1.11. We will take an individual vote on recommendation 1.12. This will not be recorded unless members indicate otherwise. We will vote on recommendations 1.13 and 1.14 en bloc. These will not be recorded unless members indicate otherwise. We will take an individual vote on recommendation 1.15. This will not be recorded unless members indicate otherwise. And then finally, we will vote on recommendations 1.16 through 1.19 en bloc. These will not be recorded unless members indicate otherwise. For each of the recorded votes, Democratic Services will read out the name of each member. I would ask that you use your microphone and clearly indicate whether you are voting in favour, against or abstaining.
Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and that's helpful. Can I just say that recommendation 6, that Council agree the council tax requirement of, is of course a consequence of recommendation 4 that assumes a council tax increase of 8%. Therefore, if that one passes, then members are just noting something that is by that point factual rather than something that is an opinion.
Yeah, my understanding is it's still a legal requirement to note it. Yeah, the only changes in the circulated ones are just semantic wording, because the wording obviously progressed from Cabinet, where Cabinet had to recommend to full council, whereas full council now makes the decision. So the only changing should be semantic. I think there was renumbering. Right, recommendations 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3. Are members in agreement with recommendations being made? Any against? Any abstention? Thank you. Recommendations are carried. Recommendation 1.4. I'll ask Democratic Services to conduct a recorded vote.
Thank you.
Sorry, and I really don't want to hang this out, but there is a bit of confusion because there are different papers floating about. Can I just ask you to read the recommendation on each one, please?
So recommendation 1.4, the council supports the paper, assumes a council tax increase of 7.99 as per paragraph 9.6. That is the recorded vote.
Thank you. Councillor Abbas. For. Councillor Allen.
Against.
Councillor Anderson.
For.
Councillor Deborah Arnold.
For.
Councillor Paul Arnold.
For.
Councillor Baker.
Against.
Councillor Byrne. Councillor Carter.
For.
Councillor Chukwa.
Against.
Councillor Collins.
For.
Councillor George Cockshall.
For.
Councillor Mark Cockshall.
For.
Councillor Duffin.
For.
Councillor Howden.
For.
Councillor Hebb.
For.
Councillor Holloway.
Against.
Councillor Jeffries.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Cathy Kent. Councillor John Kent. Councillor Kerrin.
Against.
Councillor Lydiard. Councillor Little. Councillor Maney.
For.
Councillor Massey.
Against.
Councillor Mays.
For.
Councillor Muldowney.
Against.
Councillor Onanaji.
For.
Councillor Panjala.
Against.
Councillor Pearce.
For.
Councillor Pothecary.
Against.
Councillor Ralph.
For.
Councillor Redsell.
For.
Councillor Shinnock.
Against.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Snell.
For.
Councillor Spillman.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
For.
And Councillor Worrell.
Leader?
Yeah, just a point of order as we go on for the other ones, because obviously we now record these live to live stream, people may find it difficult to the YouTube
please use
videos.
your microphones.
Can we use the microphones just to make sure, just for the general public, and make open and transparent, if we can keep using the microphones. It's not for us in here, it's for the recording for prosperity, please.
(24 in favour, 16 against). So 1.4 passes. I now ask Democratic Services to conduct a recorded vote of recommendation 1.5.
Councillor Abbas.
For.
Councillor Allen.
Fully support. For.
Councillor Anderson.
For.
Councillor Deborah Arnold.
For.
Councillor Paul Arnold.
For.
Councillor Baker.
For.
Councillor Byrne. Councillor Carter.
For.
Councillor Chukwa.
For.
Councillor Collins.
For.
Councillor George Cockshall.
For.
Councillor Mark Cockshall.
For.
Councillor Duffin.
For.
Councillor Howden.
For.
Councillor Hebb.
For.
Councillor Holloway.
For.
Councillor Jeffries.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Cathy Kent.
For.
Councillor John Kent.
For.
Councillor Kerrin.
For.
Councillor Lydiard.
For.
Councillor Little.
For.
Councillor Maney.
For.
Councillor Massey.
For.
Councillor Mays.
For.
Councillor Muldowney.
For.
Councillor Onanaji.
For.
Councillor Panjala.
For.
Councillor Pearce.
For.
Councillor Pothecary.
For.
Councillor Ralph.
For.
Councillor Redsell.
For.
Councillor Shinnock.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Snell.
For.
Councillor Spillman.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
For.
And Councillor Worrell.
For.
That's unanimous. 1.5 passes. Recommendation 1.6. Are members in agreement with the recommendation being made? All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. 1.6 passes. Recommendation 1.7. Are members in agreement with the recommendation made? Any against? Any abstention? Thank you. Recommendation 1.8. I'll ask Democratic Services to conduct a recorded vote.
Councillor Abbas.
For.
Councillor Allen.
Against.
Councillor Anderson.
For.
Councillor Deborah Arnold.
For.
Councillor Paul Arnold.
For.
Councillor Baker.
Against.
Councillor Byrne.
Against.
Councillor Carter.
For.
Councillor Chukwa.
Against.
Councillor Collins.
For.
Councillor George Cockshall.
For.
Councillor Mark Cockshall.
For.
Councillor Duffin.
For.
Councillor Howden.
For.
Councillor Hebb.
For.
Councillor Holloway.
Against.
Councillor Jeffries.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Cathy Kent.
Against.
Councillor John Kent.
Against.
Councillor Kerrin.
Against.
Councillor Lydiard.
Against.
Councillor Little,
For.
Councillor Maney,
For.
Councillor Massey,
Against.
Councillor Mays,
For.
Councillor Maldowney,
Against.
Councillor Onanaji,
For.
Councillor Panjala,
Against.
Councillor Pearce,
For.
Councillor Apothecary,
Against.
Councillor Ralph,
For.
Councillor Redsell,
For.
Councillor Shinnock,
Against.
Councillor Smith,
Against.
Councillor Snell,
For.
Councillor Spillman,
For.
Councillor Tandy,
For.
and Councillor Worrell.
Against.
Uh, 24 in favour, 16 against, 1.8 passes. Recommendations 1.9 and 1.10. The members are in agreement with the recommendations made? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Recommendation 1.11. I'll ask Democratic Services to conduct a recorded vote.
Councillor Abbas,
For.
Councillor Allen,
Against.
Councillor Anderson,
For.
Councillor Deborah Arnold,
1.11.
For.
Councillor Paul Arnold,
For.
Councillor Baker,
Against.
Sorry, Matt, can you pause, please? Recommendation 1.11 is the council supports the changes to the capital programme as set out in the report. Democratic Services, will you proceed? From where you were.
Okay. I'll continue from Councillor Byrne.
Against.
Councillor Carter.
For.
Councillor Chukwa. Councillor Collins.
For.
Councillor Cockshaw, George Cockshaw, apologies.
For.
Councillor Mark Cockshaw.
For.
Councillor Duffin.
For.
Councillor Howden.
For.
Councillor Hebb.
For.
Councillor Holloway.
For.
Councillor Jeffries.
For.
Councillor Johnson.
For.
Councillor Kelly.
For.
Councillor Kathy Kent.
For.
Councillor John Kent.
For.
Councillor Kerrin.
For.
Councillor Lydiard.
For.
Councillor Little.
For.
Councillor Maney. Councillor Massey.
Against.
Councillor Mays.
For.
Councillor Maldowney.
For.
Councillor Onanaji.
For.
Councillor Panjala.
For.
Councillor Pearce.
For.
Councillor Apothecary.
For.
Councillor Ralph.
For.
Councillor Redsell.
For.
Councillor Shinnock.
For.
Councillor Smith. Councillor Snell.
For.
Councillor Spillman.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
For.
Councillor Worrell.
For.
Councillor Kent.
Mr Mayor, where the votes are being tallied, can I move a point of order, please, in accordance with Rule 16.1N, that is to suspend council procedure rules to allow the completion of business this evening.
Yep.
Yeah, I second that, and if we can move us to the end of business.
$36 in favour, 4 against, so 1.1.
Sorry, I missed that. Can you just repeat that? Sorry.
36 in favour and 4 against. Sorry? Okay, all in favour of extending standing orders until the meeting's business concluded? Thank you. Recommendation 1.12. Are members in agreement with the recommendation being made? Any against? Any abstention? Thank you. Recommendation 1.13 and 1.14. Are members in agreement with the recommendations being made? Any against? Abstentions? Thank you. Recommendation 1.15. Are members in agreement with the recommendation being made? Any against? Any abstaining? Thank you. Recommendation 1.16, 1.17, 1.18 and 1.19. Are members in agreement with the recommendations being made? Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Item 17 has fallen, so we'll move on to item 18, questions for members. Councillor Allen, will you please put your question to the Leader of the Council?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can you just bear with me? I'm drowned in paperwork. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is to the Leader. Following your recent approach of being both open and transparent in all aspects of how council work takes place, please may I request that all 4 elected Tilbury councillors be included on the Tilbury Town Fund Board to ensure full openness and transparency.
Leader.
Thank you. The membership of the Towns Board, Tilbury Towns Fund Board, or any boards, including Grays Board, is a matter of the board to decide that in accordance with its guidance provided by the government. And it's not for the Leader to demand that. But I will say is members of the board do regularly look at the composition, and I will raise that as a board member at the next meeting, because I think that could be well worth it as we move into the area. But I might also say that there is a very large advisory board which all councillors do sit on.
Councillor Allen, supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Leader, don't you feel that in the pursuit of both openness and transparency, which we've heard quite a lot of in the last so many weeks, in how Tilbury Town receives its improvements from the government funding, that all councillors should be a part of how these improvements are delivered? Because, Leader, in the past, it's been a closed shop in decision-making. And any ideas from other elected councillors have been sidelined or cancelled out. Also, I feel that more interaction and inclusion with our local residents, giving local people, the electorate, more choice or to have a say in what they would like to see happen and delivered in their town, without once again cancelling them out and taking away their voice. So, Leader, you're either open and transparent or closed and hiding something.
Leader of the Council.
It's a bit disappointing hiding something. We're not hiding something, and I don't think anyone is intending to be hiding something. The board was set up, and I'm entitled to, I stand on the board as the cabinet member for that. You're entitled to a councillor in the area. There was actually 4 councillors in the area at that time. I think Councillor Mays, who wasn't in this group at that time, was chosen the group, and he was the person who was interested in turning up at them. It was he tried to make a board as small and an advisory board as a larger board. There was a local residents, community groups sitting on there, and large businesses. There was a small composition to deliver a board. What we've seen with the boards and the government scene is to try and deliver these projects at a pace and a speed, instead of giving the money to the council and making sure exactly what the problem was, that this council, let's have a look, 50 years ago, let's use the example, Thameside complex was designed, and I remember an Amdram society, someone's quite in the Manchester Dramatics said to me when I was talking to the Thameside, it was designed by officers, not by the people who use it. And that's what we don't want for the Tilbury, and I've tried to make sure that, and that's why there's a large advisory group with community groups. There's been a huge community engagements process. If you think that the board is inappropriately set up at this point as it goes to that, I am welcome, as I said, to do that. But what I do say, what I must say, I was surprised at your vote at the last one. The capital, and maybe you can correct that. But obviously you voted against capital programme that spends money in Tilbury. And I know the capital programme does include, and are you saying you don't want any funding to come from this council into Tilbury? Because that's what you've just voted in the capital programme.
Councillor Allen, second supplementary.
No, I reserve my right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, you won't. That's your question time done. Okay. Question 2. Councillor Byrne isn't in the chamber. Question 3. Councillor Allen, please put your questions to Councillor Mays.
It's to Councillor Jeffries.
Councillor Jeffries, I apologise.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please can I ask what steps you personally are willing to make to address the concerns of many Tilbury residents regarding the ongoing dirt and dust fallouts, which plight the lives of many people in Tilbury and the surrounding area?
Councillor for Environment, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Allen, for your question. I know that since you've been elected, you, along with my colleague, Councillor Mays, have campaigned on this issue. Councillor Mays, as portfolio holder, regularly challenged the Environment Agency and the Port Health authorities about the dust. However, the fact of the matter is Thurrock Council is not responsible for the monitoring and reporting of dust from the ports, so does have limited powers. But I do understand the concerns of Tilbury residents, which is why today I asked the officers to write to the Environment Agency seeking further assurances that any dust or other emissions are fully monitored and that there are no health risks to the Thurrock residents. And I've also asked for our website to be updated with details of how to contact the Environment Agency, and I'd encourage all residents to report any concerns.
Councillor Allen, supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did ask if I could show videos of supporting evidence of the dirt and dust fallouts, which I've got quite a few of, that have been gained by residents over the time, where you can clearly see plumes of dust in certain sites in around Tilbury 2, but I was denied to show them. I can post them out to all members if they would like to see that. But I think you should see it. And what I need to put across tonight is that whenever we put complaints in regarding the dirt and dust fallouts, all we get back by officers and EA is that it's the Sahara Desert and it's the Saharan dust that we're experiencing, and it simply isn't. You know, this has been going on for some time now.
Councillor Allen, you do need to arrive at a question.
So you know, you being the portfolio holder, Councillor Jeffries, I would like to see you challenging such people as EA and Port Health to ensure that, you know, the health and well-being of the people of Tilbury is considered. You know, not over their business.
Is there a question?
So, I'd like the portfolio holder to do more to challenge this dirt and dust. It's not Saharan Desert, Mr. Mayor. It's clearly a problem, and I do think it's detrimental to health. So I'd appreciate if you could challenge the people that regulate, please.
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Allen. So, as I said in my answer, you know, I have asked officers to go back to the Environment Agency and challenge and find out if the dust is causing or could cause harm to the residents of Thurrock. I'm sure you're aware the Port Health Authority covers all the London ports, not us, not Thurrock Council. We can challenge them, but you know, we have to believe what they send back to us. But like I say, have asked officers to challenge again. Council officers do meet with the port authorities and other operators in Tilbury where there are operations that give rise to dust. And we do work with them to try and implement mitigation measures. So I know previously there's been dampening down of areas to bring that dust under control. But I'm not trying to, you know, play down the problem, but there is an issue of dust from the Sahara, dust that's created elsewhere that does come into this area. So that is a genuine answer. But happy to meet with him, happy to look at the videos, and will, again, ask officers to always challenge the Environment Agency and the port authorities when residents report concerns.
Councillor Allen, second supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Independent testing in the past has shown that there was a serious element of one of the substances that was captured, which was arsenic. Now, we certainly don't want to be ingesting arsenic, however small the amount is now. It was said that it was a small amount, but if you've got prolonged exposure to such an element, it's certainly going to be detrimental to health. And again, I don't think that arsenic comes from the Sahara. So I would appreciate, again, with you challenging the likes of EA and the Port Health, and there will be, I hope, more independent testing on a wider scale to capture the substance and, again, test it thoroughly to determine whether the health and well-being of the people of Tilbury is at risk. But again, I would hope that you challenge the governmental environmental agency and finally put the health and well-being of the people of Tilbury above big business. I thank you.
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Allen. I think I could only just repeat what I've said. It's not the responsibility of Thurrock Council. We do challenge. I find it slightly difficult to believe that the Environment Agency can't be classed as independent. They are independent. They are there to monitor the health and look into reports. And I would just repeat, if you've got evidence, if residents are concerned about dust, they need to report it straight away so that the Environment Agency can look into it, can act to ensure that whatever dust is there isn't a danger to the people of Thurrock and in particular Tilbury.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. Councillor Byrne, would you please put your question to the Cabinet Member for Environment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got my mark on this time. Let's be honest, your motion last time about ULEZ, it was not about ULEZ, it was about how you would flog it to death on social media the following day. I felt honoured.
So, Councillor Byrne, for your first question, you just need to read the question, then you get your supplementary.
Oh, can I? Well, no, I'm just going. Just trying to get my point across. All right, OK, let's try and find it. I'm just waffling because I can't find it. Oh, the day after January's full council, you put out propaganda claiming that the opposition voted in favour of ULEZ. Was there an actual vote on ULEZ, or did we vote for our preferred option of the two motions being presented? One was to type a letter and one was to speak to the Mayor of London, as far as I got it.
Cabinet Member for Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Burns, for your question. I have to say I was rather surprised that this question had been allowed. I put forward the ULEZ motion as a ward councillor for Ockenden, not as the portfolio holder, and I was not aware that members could ask portfolio holders questions about their activities as a ward councillor. Rather, they should be about their responsibilities as the cabinet member. This puts to bed, I believe, the notion that we, the cabinet, decide on what questions are allowed. Having said that, the motion we voted on at last council was to oppose the ULEZ charge, something which most residents in my ward oppose, indeed most residents in the borough oppose. My letter to residents simply pointed out that the independent Labour councillors voted with their sister party, the Thurrock Labour Party, in not supporting the motion opposing ULEZ. Will the councillor now admit he voted the wrong way, and unlike the real independents, so will you admit you made a mistake and condemn the ULEZ charge, a charge that will cost residents in Thurrock, which you claim to represent, hundreds of pounds a year? Or does he need to get permission from his group leader, Councillor Kent?
Councillor Byrne, would you like a supplementary, or are you not bothered?
Yeah, let's have another go.
Go ahead.
Well, can you show me in the minutes where we actually voted? I mean, I voted to talk to the Mayor of London. you voted to send a stiff letter. There wasn't an actual vote on ULEZ, was there?
Wait. So, Conservative benches. Councillor Byrne needs to be able to put a supplementary, and then Councillor Jeffries answers. Councillor Byrne, your question.
What's the same question? Did we vote on ULEZ?
Thank you. Councillor Jeffries.
We didn't vote on ULEZ. We voted on a letter.
No, we've got that. Councillor Jeffries. Councillor Jeffries.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. ULEZ. Thank you, Councillor Byrne, for your supplementary question. And thanks to this man here for getting you elected, I think. But I won't hold it against him. The point of the motion was to send a clear message to the Labour Mayor of London that we don't want the ULEZ charge being imposed on Outer London, because that will have an impact on the residents in Thurrock, the residents that we represent. You voted against that motion. You voted against that motion, but you voted in favour of the motion from your sister party. Yeah? It was political. We weren't being political. We wanted to protect the Thurrock residents that will get this £60 a week charge. We've talked this evening a lot about being political. Well, that was political previously, yeah? We were thinking of residents. So I challenge you again. Will you admit you got it wrong and you should have voted in favour of our residents, not in favour of ULEZ and a £60 charge a week to residents?
Councillor Byrne, the second supplementary.
Yeah. If you want to clear it up, do it now. With no hidden agendas, all 49. We go through, not named. Matthew can sort it. The Mayor can approve it and actually ask the question, are you for or against ULEZ coming on the doorstep of Thurrock? No, it wasn't. I voted to
okay,
talk,
I think we now exhausted this topic.
Their motion was, do you want to talk to the Mayor? The second one, John Kent
Councillor Byrne, do you have a succinct
talk.
Supplementary you actually supplementary put to Councillor Jeffries?
We do it again then. Go to vote now. Go to vote now.
No. We're not running mythical votes. Councillor Jeffries? No, I don't think so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Byrne, I think, for your question. Just a little bit of advice, perhaps. You might want to meet with the monitoring officer to learn how democracy within this chamber works. Once you've done that, I suggest you put a motion forward to full council, yeah, like I did, and ask members to support it or not support it. You've had 3 opportunities now, 3 opportunities to say that you condemn the ULEZ charge. You failed on each occasion. We are opposed to it. You're in favour of it. The residents in your ward will have their say very shortly, yeah? And I hope they are listening to this debate this evening.
Councillor Worrell, would you please put your question to the Cabinet Member for Environment?
Oh, let's have some normality, eh? Following several public apologies and restarts of the waste collection services, can the Cabinet Member for the Environmental Services advise residents when will we get the full service that we pay for?
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Worrell, for your question. Councillor Worrell is right. There have been several apologies and restarts to the bin service. And I'm pleased to say that for the general waste, that's the green and grey bins, and the recycling, the blue bins, we're now providing service that our residents would expect. Missed bins are being collected the next day, complaints of blocked access are being solved, and crews are being listened to when they have difficulty in collecting bins and they have the solution to the problem. This has been made possible by the tough action we have taken, replacing the officer management team at all levels. However, the garden waste service is still failing. This is largely part to poor management of the service last year, failure to manage sickness levels, holiday requests, resulting in too many people being absent at the same time, and a failure to recruit enough staff and to reduce our dependency on agency. This is despite being told by me to reduce the number of agency staff so that we employed local people. With poor management comes poor morale. With poor management comes poor morale amongst our hard-working bin crews. It will take time to change the culture, but I am confident that we have the right team in place. We have a rolling advert to recruit both drivers and loaders. We've recruited 4 drivers and 12 loaders since the 1st of January, and we've reduced the number of agency staff to just over 21%, down from 25%. Still too high, but I hope we'll get it down. I'm confident with these changes and more to come, we will see a huge improvement in the service.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. Councillor Worrell, a supplementary.
Of course. I want to talk about brown bins. My brown bin has been at the end of my drive for 4 weeks, and it's still there today. It's been day to day, it's still there. Spoke to the bin man. I went, brown bin, and he went, no, they only had a team out yesterday. There weren't one out for today. So this is across the borough. There is residents on my ward, I'll take you there tomorrow, they've still got their turkey carcass in their brown bin. It's nearly Easter. It's not good enough. I know you've said sorry, I know you've said you're going to put it right. Councillor Coxall, please don't tell him what to say. Councillor Coxall, he can do it. He can do it on his own. Thank you. You know, so when can these residents, you know, like, got lots of little cul-de-sacs. They're told, they ring up, they say the bins have not been collected, black bins, green bins, whatever. Leave them out till this time next week, we'll pick them up again. Little tiny cul-de-sacs can't leave their bins out for a week, okay? Councillor Massey's ward is a nightmare. If you was to go on there for bin collections, every single week, some weeks, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, their black and green bins are not getting picked up. Brown bins are terrible. You know, they are the worst bins. When can we expect to see we're paying for it, you know, we've talked about council tax tonight, we are paying for it. When can we have a proper bin collection, and when can that resident expect their turkey giblets to be picked up?
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You don't want to know about giblets.
Sorry. So, I agree entirely. The brown bin service is rubbish. We're not collecting brown bins. It is appalling. Yeah, absolutely appalling. I agree. But I've just given you the reasons why the brown bin service is so poor. We don't have enough crews, that's both drivers and loaders, to be able to provide that service to the level that we want to be able to do. So we've prioritised the green and the blue bins, the general waste and the recycling. And as I've said, that is now performing well. As for leaving bins out for a week, I hope residents aren't being told that. The way the system, then I'm appalled if they're being told to do that. And I will, you know, take that up with officers tomorrow morning, and they can take that up with the call centre, because that's not what they should be being told. The way the system works is that if your bin is missed on the day of collection, we come back the next day to collect those bins. Now, with the green and the blue bins, that is now happening. It hasn't in the past, it is now happening. That service it has improved, still improving, and is where we want it to be. The brown bins, however, yeah, we're not collecting them. We shouldn't be promising to collect them the next day, because we can't guarantee that, because we just I didn't tell you to put them out. I didn't.
So Councillor Wall, you will get another supplementary if you let Councillor Jeffries finish this one.
So, I agree it's frustrating. It's been frustrated for a long time. I'm very frustrated. That's why I've just told you the reasons why it's happening. Trust me, I've been dealing with this for a long, long time, yeah? We're trying to get it right. We've got it right with the green and the blue bins. Sadly, we still haven't got there with the brown bins, but we are working on them. When we've got the crews, the service will, you know, be more regular. But at the moment, what we're trying to do on a daily basis is collect as many brown bins as possible. If they're not collected, they shouldn't be left out. People need to move them back in, and then wait for the next collection. And I agree, cul-de-sacs, you can't have bins piling up. No, but you mentioned cul-de-sacs, so you know.
Councillor Worrell, supplementary.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't live in a cul-de-sac, and mine's staying right on the end of my drive until you come and get it, and that's whatever. But I do need to cut my grass because it's nice out there, and it's full up, so it'll have to go in the black bin now. So I've spoke to bin men, you know, I've stopped and spoke to them, and they told me that they got 2 days for coming in on a Saturday a little while ago, and that you did a brown bin round up, you know, pretty much collect lots of the bins. And mine, that must have been a month ago, because that's when mine got collected. And I thought, yippee, here we go again, we've got brown bins, because you'd said put your brown bins out. You haven't put a press release out to say, don't put your brown bins out, and we've stopped again. So there's the confusion. But you must have done something, because Grays is still getting Christmas. Councillor Poppacare has still got a Christmas tree in hers. Like, you haven't done a full round anywhere. So just looking at the bin collection, and I read a paper that said that it's up for renewal, the contract and the renewals, and, you know, and we do need to get on top of this. And I spoke to the bin men, and they went, if they spoke to us, we could tell them, you know, but they're refusing to speak to the men that could put the job
Councillor
right.
Worrell, you need to arrive at a question at some stage.
Okay, so when or if, can you promise the residents that you're going to get it right? You're going to make sure that it's going to get it right. You know, you must have the same problem on the doors for your election, because I'm getting them, so you must be getting them. Can you tell me whether the bin collections are going to stay 2 weekly, or is that something that you are, you know, now looking at? Are we going to 2 weekly collections? You know, we wasn't, well, now we've got to find some money. Are we going to stay with weekly, or are we going 2 weekly?
Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Worrell. I talk to bin men regularly. In fact, on Tuesday, I did a whole round with them. In the orange suit, I was out loading the bins onto the back of the lorry, talking to the bin crews to find out what they were thinking. No, I didn't actually come down your road. I'd have had great pleasure in emptying your bin for you. I didn't. I was in a different part of the borough. And as regard grass cutting, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm pleased to say that we've actually started cutting grass earlier in the borough. Our guys are out cutting grass at the moment earlier than they've ever been. So yes. Can I give an assurance? Yes, I am working hard to make sure we get this situation resolved. We have resolved the green and the blue bins. They are now being collected on a regular basis. If they're not collected on the day of collection, we go back the next day and we collect them. Brown bin service isn't working. I admit that. I've said that. Yep. What we do is when we've got sufficient crews, they go out. And it may well be that it's Councillor Kerrin's day to have his bins collected, so he gets his brown bin collected. The next day, when it's your turn to get your bin collected, we don't have enough crews in to be able to do the brown bin collection. Sadly, we clearly haven't been able to get to Councillor Pottery's Christmas tree or a giblets. But I'm hoping that we will finally get round and collect them. And if I can go out and do another round with them, with the guys, I promise you I'll come and collect your bins. I can't give you a time frame, I'm afraid, on when that's going to happen. All I can say is we're working hard to recruit drivers, to recruit loaders, to make sure that we've got sufficient staff.
Can you just tell me if we're staying on 2 weekly collections, please? Thank you. That was my question. Are we staying on 2 weekly, like on weekly, or are we going to go to 2 weekly collections?
Recycling is staying weekly.
We've arrived at the end of the questions. Question 4, Councillor Pearce, will you please put your question to the Cabinet Member for Housing?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Oh, I didn't mean to shout that loud. Tenants of the area houses in Central Avenue and Love Lane, Aveley, were decanted from their properties while essential works were being completed by the council. They were told they would be out for a matter of weeks out of their homes, but after more than 12 months, they are yet to return, as works are still ongoing. Does the portfolio holder agree is both unacceptable and unfair, and what is being done to ensure the works are now completed soon? Thank you.
Councillor Spillman.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Pearce. Firstly, I'd like to apologise for the inconvenience to these residents. Obviously, having to leave your home for such a great length of time is not ideal. We've obviously decanted them into suitable alternative accommodation, but it's not their home, and we shouldn't pretend that it is. Now, these properties are particularly difficult. They're actually classified as defective under the 1985 Housing Act due to their structure. If you see a picture of these homes, it's hard to fathom how anyone would have come to the conclusion that we should be building in that way. They were prefabs. They were meant to be up 10 or 30 years, and they've been up a lot longer. The other problem that we had is when we tried to underpin them, there were further complications, and there was a level of underpinning that wasn't foreseen. Further to that, the new PAS 2035 regulations happened halfway through the project, which has meant that the energy efficiency requirements have changed substantially. But the main problem, which we've got, is that when we stripped back these properties, we found that the concrete lintels actually go into neighbouring properties. Now, if these properties were all in the same area as a block, we would have knocked them down and rebuilt them. But the problem is that they're attached to properties that have been bought and are owned by people. And this means that we are now in a legal negotiation to try and get some party wall agreements. And as you know anything about these sort of disputes, they can take much longer than we would like. So, yeah, it is very difficult. I would like to add that we are doing everything we can to progress this, and I've asked officers if they could assist you and do a site visit, and if I'm available, I would also very much like to attend that with you. We've been in regular consultation with the residents, but consultation, although you know the right thing to do, keeping them up to date, is not the same as taking them back to the homes that they live in. But yeah, these are really, really problematic homes. If it was possible, we'd knock them down and rebuild them and provide these tenants with new homes. But as I say, because they've got owner-occupied properties next to them, that's not possible. But most importantly, I'd like to apologise to those residents, because it's not their fault. It's just a series of technical and legal problems that have led to this situation.
Councillor Pearce, supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for that answer. However, could the portfolio holder ensure that the ward councillors are updated by officers about progress in these homes, as previously stated, in the future? And also, I'd like the site visit, if you could be there as well, right? Also, considering these families have been inconvenienced for 15 months, that's a long time, are prepared to offer them a token compensation to the tenants, recognising the distress, the lengthy process that it's caused. And also, it's not just those that had to be moved out, it's those that are living next door still, listening to the drilling, the banging, everything, and the loud talking. It's been going on 5 days a week, early in the morning to quite late at night. So could something be happening quite soon, please?
Councillor Spillman,
Yeah, of course.
Brief answer.
Of course, we need to continue consultation with ward members. I mean, looking at the pictures, I don't understand how where they were, you know, the energy efficiency in these properties must have been absolutely horrendous. So God knows what sort of bills they were paying. I mean, there's just these the walls are literally just thin concrete rows that you could literally punch through. I mean, these were built in the most bizarre manner, and I can assure you that you know that no one is building like that anymore. But yeah, I'd be more than happy to attend a site visit with you. It might even be good to bring some of the residents to that site visit as well. In terms of compensation, I mean, I can't stand here today as portfolio and say that we're going to offer compensation. That would be an ongoing discussion, but it's a discussion that I'm willing to listen to, so that's not a problem at all.
Councillor Pearce, second supplementary.
It's just to ask the portfolio holder, not just Aveley, but is there other houses like this in the rest of the borough as well that might need attention? And if so, perhaps the whole lot need coming down.
Councillor Spillman.
Yeah, there are. The whole reason why this project started is because we took a survey of all of these properties. There were other properties. There are some in Bellis, and there are other, obviously, non-traditional properties along in Teviot Road as well. So yeah, there are a number of these prefab structures that are just bizarre and are a real challenge. if they're in one group, again, just knock them down, rebuild them. But it's just so problematic when you've got an owner-occupier next door, because you're damaging their property. And they have to have a lot of legal reassurances. There has to be all sorts of different texts, like lawyers, surveyors, and it becomes difficult. But it's not acceptable for those residents, and let's not pretend that it is.
Councillor Pearce, would you please put your question to Councillor Cockshaw?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Residents of the Hall estate are suffering as the consequences of HGV movements to and from the new school development site in Love Lane, which in itself wasn't needed. Mud and debris are everywhere on the residential roads. The HGVs appear to be accessing the site outside permitted hours and driving along inappropriate routes, asking residents to move their vehicles, say 2 o'clock in the morning, saying, could you move the car because I can't get by? This is ridiculous. And, you know, it's another person, a stone that wasn't cleared up, obviously, has cracked a windscreen on a car. On these occasions, you know, what action can the council take to address this issue with the developer? Because it's just going on too much and it's getting worse, and they're just taking the mickey out of us. Thank you.
Councillor Cockshaw.
It sounds truly terrible, and I know you've been passionate, and some of the Conservative councillors there have been passionate about not making sure an opposition and making sure that they keep their green and pleasant land around Averley. And I understand that, and I understand the passion around the school and how you wanted the school, but not in that place. And the planning is now moved forward, and it's moving forward. But the builders do need to actually abide by the residents and be conscientious about the residents and what the mess of the road, and it is unbelievable. And I do hope I will come down with you very shortly, within the next week or so, to see this myself and make sure that the planning team, we can put a planning enforcement in. Myself and yourself, and we say if there's an enforcement against that. Obviously, you do know, as a long-serving councillor here in Averley and across Thurrock, that the development management team will regularly attend if we make sure that councillors, and especially no one will cross the Councillor Pearce, to make sure that we make sure them residents are protected.
Councillor Pearce, supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your answer. Many of the issues I've referred to in my question have already been reported to the planning enforcement, but the response is yet to be forthcoming. I've excavated the matter to you as a leader of the council. Would the leader please use this position to ensure that I have received a full written update from the Planning Enforcement Department explaining what steps have been taken to ensure the development complies with these planning obligations? Because to me, they're just taking the mickey again. Thank you.
We've heard this numerous times across the area, and it may not be this site and it may not be developers, but as we have issues in planning in development and be of no doubt, the planning enforcement team will take action of any infringements and make sure that. And I will come down with you and visit the sites, see what is there, and then we'll have an action to plan and talk to the planning officers accordingly. Thank you.
Councillor Pearce, second supplementary.
Just to ask, how soon is possible? Thank you.
Councillor Cockshaw.
Let's say next week.
Question 6, Councillor Paul Arnold. Will you please put your question to the Cabinet Member for Highways?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the proposed introduction of permit parking charges, will the portfolio holder confirm that monies raised will be ring-fenced for increasing enforcement and for consultations within other areas of South Ockenden that may wish to have permit parking, for example, the Pear Tree Estate? Also, that the residents on the Flowers Estate who will now have to pay these charges will get the opportunity to decide if they wish the parking scheme to continue or not.
Thank you. Councillor Maney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Arnold, for your question. Mr. Mayor, the revenue generated from the new modest charges will be used to help fund the existing schemes, which have become difficult to sustain on a cost-neutral basis following increased service and maintenance costs. It's unlikely, therefore, that this new revenue stream can be used to fund additional permit parking areas at this time. I do, however, agree that the public parking arrangements in Ockenden should be reviewed, as there are some roads which continue to suffer from commuter parking. It is clear that Ockenden has not been given the same attention as other communities in Thurrock with rail stations. I can advise that I have had conversations with officers over how this can be addressed, and we continue to explore all options. I do agree in principle that permit parking arrangements should be extended if there is a case for this, and residents agree. In terms of residents in Thurrock who already live in a PPA, I do believe they should have a say on the schemes. To this end, I have asked the service to undertake an engagement exercise, and this is currently being designed. Mr Mayor, it is worth bearing in mind, however, that the consultation with residents prior to the introduction of the schemes did make clear that the annual cost and charging arrangements would be reviewed annually. There was never a commitment that the schemes would be free of charge forevermore. The proposed charges will also be considerably less than those levied by other neighbouring local authorities, meaning Thurrock residents will continue to receive a good deal. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Arnold, supplementary.
Yes, please, Mr Mayor. Will the portfolio holder also confirm that the consultation will start as soon as practically as possible, so that residents can have their say?
Councillor Maney.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think it has to start as soon as possible because, of course, the charges have been approved, and I think it's only right that the residents have a say on that before they come into play. So, yeah, I'm committed to getting this up and running as quickly as possible, finding out what it is residents want, what they think of the schemes, can they be improved. It's important that we know what they want, and, of course, all councillors will be included in that exercise. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Arnold, second supplementary.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. There's only 5 minutes left allocated for question time, so I'm looking for pithy responses. Councillor George Cockshaw, will you please put your question to the Cabinet for Highways?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. One of the cruelest consequences of the proposed ULEZ expansion will be that Thurrock residents with non-compliant vehicles will incur a charge when attending Corbett's Tay Crematorium or Upminster Cemetery. Will the portfolio holder make any representations to the Mayor of London and seek a dispensation for such residents?
Councillor Maney.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Council's response to the ULEZ consultation identified a number of concerns regarding the lack of consideration afforded to neighbouring boroughs, including the impact that the zone's expansion would have upon residents in Thurrock. Our view is that the impact of Labour's new tax has been poorly considered. The admission of a dispensation for those visiting the crematorium and cemetery is an example of the concerns already raised in our response. Since we debated the ULEZ extension at the last full council, the transport team has had further dialogue with TfL and was due to meet with representatives yesterday, but the terms of the meeting have been narrowly defined. It seems the Mayor of London only wishes to engage on this matter when it is in TfL's interests and not when neighbouring boroughs or concerned parties wish to highlight their own needs. Nonetheless, we will take the opportunity to press Thurrock's concerns. That said, the Council has still to receive any reply to its consultation response and request for further information. The Leader of the Council wrote to the Mayor directly last month, stating this Council's opposition to the ULEZ extension and has similarly received no substantive reply to the points he raised. In respect of people driving to cemeteries in the expanded zone, TfL's position is that those affected by the new tax may be able to access grants under the scrappage scheme. What it fails to recognise, however, is that such funding is not available to residents outside of London. As we know, Mr Mayor, Corbett's Tay is relatively remote for many Thurrock residents and it can only be accessed by a private vehicle. You're therefore right, Councillor Cockshaw, to highlight how this will unfairly hit many residents, including those in Bellis. Even in the face of the London Mayor's refusal to engage and his contempt for those immediately outside of the zone, I can assure you that the Council and the Thurrock Conservatives will continue to press the case for all residents who will be unfairly hit by the ULEZ expansion. This includes those travelling to Corbett's Tay Crematorium and Upminster Cemetery.
Councillor Cockshaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Maney, for your response. I'm somewhat pleased and disappointed, I should say, perhaps. I'm pleased that we are sticking with our commitment following the motion at the last full council into opposing this charge and the effect it will have on our residents. I'm just disappointed the Mayor is yet to respond, and I think it's semantics. Pardon? Sorry, Councillor Worrell, I missed that one. Oh.
No. Your question's to Councillor Maney.
So just really, the question is, can the portfolio holder, I know you had the meeting yesterday, can you please provide me an update from officers of how that meeting went? Because it's just so disappointing the Labour Mayor of London has actually failed to engage with a neighbouring borough.
Councillor Maney.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. Just keep hitting that raw nerve over there. You know, Labour and independent Labour, they just will not come out against their mayor. It is shameful. Shame. Give the mayor time. People don't have time. They're worried. Do they need to buy a new car? Can they afford to buy a new car? How are they going to get to the graves of the... please. Can they get to the graves of their relatives? Can they get to the graves of their relatives untaxed? These are all things they need to know. And, you know, we know you're not on their side. You're on the side of the London Mayor. But these are real questions. As I said earlier, go on the doorsteps, and these are the things that people are raising. These are the things people are raising. They are concerned about being taxed off the road by the London Mayor, somebody you and the Independent Labour Party have supported. So the answer is yes, if we ever get a reply. We're not the only ones. Other local authorities have been ignored as well. As I said, the London Mayor isn't interested. All I can assure you is that us on this side of the chamber will fight to the last to see off this new tax. And residents need to know they are complicit. They're in the Mayor's pocket. Thank you, Mr.
In the London Mayor's pocket, not in mine, you understand. Sorry, Councillor Cox, we have now run out of time, so can't have a second supplementary, I'm afraid. Yep. Move on to motions updates. Sorry, beg pardon. Sorry, item 19. Any members representing the council and outside bodies wish to make a report? Item 20, minutes of committees listed on the agenda page. Right. Item 21, motions update report. Does anyone wish to speak? Thank you. Motions. One motion has been submitted and approved by the monitoring officer. Councillor Kent, would you please propose and speak to your motion?
Mr Mayor, this motion calls on Cabinet to retain the Thameside complex as a hub for arts, culture and heritage for the community of Thurrock to own. I think we've all kind of rehearsed the issues around the Thameside pretty fully over the last couple of years. The complex opened its doors in 1971. The first play put on there was The Love for Four Colonels in October of that year. The Thameside Theatre is a fully professional theatre with a professional stage, professional lighting rigs, professional sound rigs. And I passionately believe that the community of Thurrock that have the opportunity to perform in the theatre get the opportunity to perform in what is a professional theatre rather than in what somebody once described as a drafty church hall somewhere. We move on to the museum. We all know that the museum is fantastic. Not only the museum gallery, but the tens of thousands of other artefacts that aren't on display but are stored within the complex. Mr Mayor, last month I asked the portfolio holder whether he would begin the process of having the museum opted as an accredited museum under the Arts Council Museum accreditation scheme. And unfortunately, when he came to the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, he said that he would not be willing to do that, as he knew that that would make it more difficult to close and move the museum. Mr Mayor, we then move on to the library. The library is not a branch library, it's the borough's central library. It's a purpose-built library, built as a library. And the really fantastic thing about it is the children's library, one of the few purpose-built children's libraries that there are, sitting underneath the adult library with that parapet walkway so that adults above can watch down and check that the kids are okay. And I have to say the proposal that we would somehow squeeze the library into one of the buildings here just fills me with dread. It's not a library, not a purpose-built library. And the children's library would inevitably be relegated to some kind of corner somewhere with one of those typical green, scratchy carpets laid down and a little artificial picket fence around it. And I just passionately believe that our children deserve better than that. I was heartened by some of the things that were said earlier. Councillor Coxall saying that Cabinet will actually be asking for new bids, that there will be opportunities to present new proposals. He said of the Thameside, I am passionate about it and I don't want it lost to the Borough of Thurrock. I welcome that. I welcome that as a real sign that there is a future for the Thameside, and that what I've asked for in this motion may well happen. And I hope that the Leader of the Council will respond to the motion and give us even more comfort around that.
Thank you. Is that motion seconded? Councillor Worrell, would you like to speak now, or is over your right? Okay. Councillor Apothecary.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Kent for proposing the motion. I think, first of all, we have to acknowledge what happened outside this building this evening. We had a huge groundswell of the people of Thurrock outside saying exactly what they want to happen to the Thameside complex, which is they want it to be retained, they want it to be kept and saved for the community. So the question is, for Thurrock's Conservative councillors, is did you hear the people sing? Did you listen? I wish you had come and talked to the people you're accountable to, who are outside tonight, rather than scurrying into the building, because then you would, thank you, because then you would have heard from the community why this building means so much to them. From the Thameside young producers to the LGBTQ+ community to Thurrock's disabled residents. We heard what the Thameside means to them, and it obviously means lots to lots of other groups as well, but they were the three we heard from. The fact that you just cannot escape is that we all deserve a theatre, we deserve a museum, we deserve a dedicated art space, we deserve a central library that deserves that name. A central, people in here will know I am a librarian, and for me, a central library should always be a statement of intent. It says what you value. It says whether you value learning and education or not. It should certainly not be an afterthought shoved in with some books on a shelf shoved in a corner with 2 PCs. That is not a library. The fact is that if you close that building, the message you send, loud and clear, is that culture, learning, heritage and the arts aren't for the likes of us in Thurrock. That's the message you send. If you close that building is a totem, and that's what that building, if you get rid of that building, if you decide to close that building, that is what you are saying. That is the message you are sending, loud and clear. And that would be a betrayal of our young people, their hopes, their dreams and their aspirations. You asked the community if they cared, and boy did they respond. They turned around and said, yeah, we care, we really care. You asked the community to step up and try and run the place, and they delivered. Now you're reneging on your promises, moving the goalposts. It belongs to the community, it should be given to the community. Yeah. I know it will be difficult to go against your party leadership when they ask you to accept the closure, but please remember, you have a choice. You will have the choice to put your residents first. And I know deep down none of you want to close it. I know none of you want the residents of Thurrock to lose something so dear to them, and none of you really want the community to carry the can for your leadership's mistakes. I know, I get it. But you will be told that there isn't a choice, that it is inevitable, that there's no other option. And what I want to say to you tonight is remember there is always a choice.
Otherwise, what is 3 minutes.
Thank you. Otherwise, what is the point of being elected to this chamber if you don't have choices, if you have to just do as you're told? Think about your legacy. You don't want to be a yes man who did what the party said and ignored your residents. I will wrap up. Thank you.
You'll wrap up
so what I'm asking for you to do is to dig.
Councillor Kerrin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Kemp, for bringing this motion. I think in terms of the theatre, I think the people have spoken. People have said that they want a purposeful theatre for Thurrock, which if we close the Thameside, I don't think anyone in this chamber, anyone out there believes that that this council would have the ambition to actually build a state-of-the-art theatre which can be used. Once it's gone, it's gone. And I want to continue on the point that Councillor Apothecary made regarding the library. And I speak with two different hats on, really. Firstly, as a parent of young children in Thurrock, we use the library. And we use the fact it's actually a dedicated children's library is really important. Okay? We use it to promote love of reading. We love the Summer Reading Challenge, everything that the brilliant staff in these libraries offer. And if we did relegate the library to some shelves in these buildings or next door, you'd sit there and say, well, we're providing a statutory library service. We've got a library, we've got bookshelves. But like Councillor Kent has said, it's a dedicated children's library, which, once it's gone, with everything we've heard tonight, with budgets, with the way things are going, would a children's library be purpose-built in Thurrock? It wouldn't be. It would be a space where there's some bookshelves. And as a parent trying to promote a love of reading of my children, going to the library, where basically the whole universe is there for them, is so powerful. As many of you are aware, in my professional life, I'm a teacher, and tomorrow is World Book Day. And every year, World Book Day springs new ideas onto children, which they then take into the library. And all last week, I was doing assemblies every day, extolling the virtues of libraries, saying to young people, libraries are probably the one space left in Thurrock, left anywhere actually, not just unique to Thurrock, anywhere in the country where you can walk in without a penny in your pocket and you can leave with all the knowledge, all the imagination that you need. You can walk in there and it doesn't matter whether you're son of a millionaire or someone whose parents are on the breadline. It's equal. Everyone has the same. You can't walk out with more. You can walk out with the same because these buildings are there for everyone to walk in. It doesn't matter what you've got on you. It's a leveler. It levels everyone. It levels up, to use the phrase that seems to have been forgotten. So what I would say is, when the Cabinet is making decisions based on the Thameside...
30 seconds, Councillor.
Thank you. Please think about what you'll be saying to future generations if you dismantle the purpose-built children's library and give them a few bookshelves out in the corridor. It sends the wrong message. It says that Thurrock isn't ambitious for its young people, and we need the next generation to rise up and do even better than we have. Every generation should do better, and libraries are a key part of that.
Councillor Cockshall. Councillor Cockshall.
Yeah, I thank you for that. Thank you for the impassioned species and bits and pieces. And I think with this thing, we've got to get through some of the rhetoric again. And we've seen some winding up and some crying wolf. But I'm hoping one day people will see rhetoric and crying wolf for what it is. It's rhetoric and crying wolf and trying to get elected instead of actually thinking about governing. And we're going back to this thing again about how the right things to do. I've said 4 or 5 years ago, what we want is, and I think we voted it, fewer buildings, better services. We want to see, and I'm a sitting Conservative, and I believe in Conservative, we talk about outcomes. We don't talk about buildings, we don't talk about people, and we talk about the outcomes of the community, the outcomes of the thing, the outcomes of health, the outcomes of the thing. Is this better than what it was before? And if we get stuck in buildings, in that, we end up going down a hole. But that said, we've got to look at what outcomes coming about. And let's see. What I want to see, and what we can give some guarantees tonight, and that's why we need a cultural hub, we want a good central library, and we want a bloody good museum instead of waiting to Essex County Council Records Office or out to a good archive that we can actually use. Instead of having to get, that's at Essex, and having some of that equipment, some of that stuff on display properly, and a good way of running a proper museum. If we've got a museum and we've got a good archive, we should be seeing the stuff in that library instead of a few councillors when you want to go and look at it. You can go upstairs and look at it. We need more people seeing it. So that's what's missing in the borough, that cultural hub. And we've got to think about doing that. And I would really like to vote for this motion tonight. But I think it preludes what we've already talked about tonight. And what we've talked about tonight is go through a proper process. We've gone through a process of such, and both bids were found wanting. With offer is out there for them to actually relook at that. We voted on a capital bids now that there's money in the capital programme to make sure that there's money for a library and a new museum. That's in the capital programme we've all voted on tonight. There's money secured for next year in the budget inside that capital programme tonight. And what we've got to do then is look at what we can do for the cultural hub. And we've got to answer that. And I think that actually works out really well if we go into the live, work and play agenda of the local plan. What do we want as a cultural offering? 50 years ago, Thurrock looked completely different. 50 years ago, it was a different body here. Is that right to deliver? And I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying let's just think, is that right thing to do? Use this opportunity to see, is that the best place? What does it look like? What can we do to deliver that a nice cultural offering in the centre of Grays and a good leisure facility that people need to have to learn and actually enjoy themselves? And that's what I want to see. I want to see a great cultural hub, a fantastic central library, and a better museum that's actually using the assets that we've got so that members of the public can see it and not just one councillor when they ring up to go over there privately to go and have a look at. And I can't vote for this tonight, but I promise you that in Cabinet, we are going to move forward with delivering this. It's been waiting 2 years too long to actually get a decision. Tough decisions, you've seen me won't make tough decisions and put the electoral unreasonable that you think is not very reasonable decisions. But I will make the tough decisions because I want to see them three things survive and thrive in the borough and not just because we got money worries and this, that. But that's all I want. A good place for them three items.
Thank you. Councillor Edsel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Everybody probably knows how I feel about libraries in the area, and we've got our small library and I'll fight for that, whatever. But I think, and having used Thameside for many, many years, and I'm going in a few weeks' time to there, I think it's all right to keep saying we need this building, but we need something that is in the 21st century, that it's not comfortable to sit in there. It's on top of everybody else. There's no room to put your feet, and it's really just uncomfortable seating. So we do need a cultural part, but we need something that's a bit more fit for purpose. Most of our cultural stuff and our museum is in county council, and we don't see half of that. I was lucky enough when I was mayor, I don't know if James has been, but to go to there and see it brought out, because we don't see all that stuff. It's just under lock and key, and because it's got to be kept at a certain temperature. So I think a lot of people don't know that we've got all that stuff that sits in county. But I do want to see a better building, definitely, whether it be where it is now, but we need, people are going to the Towngate Centre or West, South End, because it's better facilities. And we haven't got that in the Thameside. And I think we haven't had that for quite a few years. So we need to build something before whatever we do, whatever happens, we need to have something in place to move to, which is better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edsel. Councillor Abbas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we know, Thameside complex is already in agenda for ONS for next week. So let ONS scrutinize this paper. Let's democratic system work. This building, as we all know, this is over 50 years old and requires significant repairs and maintenance. The estimated refurbishment costs are around 18 million or above. Just to clarify, there is a difference between a bidder and communities. We value art, culture, and heritage, which celebrate everyone in Thurrock, not just few individuals. This motion is nothing more than a political point scoring, an attempt to seek news headline, but offering no solution. I am opposing this as I strongly believe that the motion presenter believes in rumors and assumptions and don't value transformation and innovation.
Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be supporting this motion, and my reason is just want to think, just take a step back for a moment, everybody. The reason we're all here tonight, we're all here because, regardless of our political beliefs, we wanted to make a difference to our local community. We wanted to represent the residents where we live and make their life better in whatever way we could. The residents tonight were out there. They made their voices heard. They want the Thameside complex to remain open. Now, we've apparently got, according to our leader, we have a new era in Thurrock of openness and transparency. If that is what is really meant, and it's not just words because they look good on paper, it would have been nice if the council and the cabinet members here would have gone out and spoken to those residents outside and listened to them and actually understood why they're so passionate about this theatre. There's been talk of building something else, but in my experience, the council built or put plans for Stamford Station. They closed Stamford Station and put plans for a new one. That now is on hold, from what I understand. So at the moment, I do not have confidence in what I've just heard about a new theatre being built, because I don't see where it can be built. The residents here want that theatre to remain open. They love the theatre, they love everything that goes on in there, all the different groups. It's such an amazing place to go, and it brings so much benefit to our community, young and old. So I'd ask you to look carefully and really look at this decision and support this motion to keep the Thameside open. Thank you.
Councillor Ralph.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to clarify something. You didn't just hear that we decided to build a new theatre. What we did hear is that next week the paper is saying it does not include the decision to close or sell the Thameside building. I think that that's a great move forward with us. Councillor Kerrin, I really appreciate your statement and what you just said. You have separated the library, the theatre and the museum. For me, I've 20-odd years wanted a better museum in Thurrock. I do struggle with the small displays that are available, and I agree with you. I've been up through the back of that theatre, through the back of the museum. I've seen all the artefacts that we have that the public can't see, and it's a crime that we can't have that on a better display. I really would love a better area that we could put our museum into. As for the library, I understand what we're talking about is moving into the CO2 building. I think that is a plan that we would need to work on. I would like to see the designs and all that before that was agreed, because I also agree with you, I don't want to see a children's area just shoved there. I do want the theatres to stay. I guess my best friend is Russell Brand now, who dragged me up on stage and said that. I said that very clear, that I supported the Thameside Theatre staying as a theatre, and I still stand by that. I did go out and speak to those out there tonight. Unfortunately, I did get a lot of abuse coming back in, but I let them off because that was more about the council tax than the theatre itself. But yeah, I do appreciate Councillor Kerrin's things, but unfortunately, because the motion has moved on with the statement tonight, I can't support this.
Councillor Byrne. So, Councillor Byrne, can you put your microphone on?
Yep, sorry
Thank
again.
you.
I think most people know about my love of the performing arts, but also not a lot of people know that about 3 decades ago, when I couldn't afford a newspaper, I went to that library and I found a job that kept me going for 30 years and has kept my family and fed my family. So I owe that library a bloody good living. So that. But Councillor Abbas had just said the old building is old, but don't stop your mates wanting it, does it? Hey. So the the biggest question, why have we got a culture and a community and culture portfolio holder when he wasn't prepared to go out there and connect with the people and ask them what the issues are, ask them about the culture? It's all right saying I've done this, I've done that, but as an actual community and culture for Thurrock, you've done nothing.
Councillor Arnold. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We've been accused of not listening. We've been accused of not being open and transparent. When officers brought a paper to Cabinet with suggestions around closing the theatre, it was you and I, Councillor Cockshill, that stood up and said no and challenged it and asked for options around talking to the community, and was there other ways of making the building viable. When there was problems with the building, it was you, Councillor Snell, that sat on a workforce and did a huge report to help back up some of the stuff that was going on. You've accused us of not talking to residents, and yet I stood on the stage with the Amateur Dramatics Society and the Save the Theatre group, talking about the pitfalls of the theatre, talking about why we were doing what we were doing and why we were asking for the challenge and why we were asking the community to work with us to help us. That was me that did that. When we'd got over those initial altercations due to propaganda that was put out there by other opposition teams of what we were doing when we weren't doing it, we formed a round table. And around that table, the only councillors there, again, was you and I, Councillor Cockshill, talking to residents, talking to those that wanted to put in the community bids, helping them and getting them to understand that we are part of the community and we want to see a much better arts and culture offer, a much better library, a much better museum. We want the same things, and as Cabinet, we will support our leader in trying to obtain that in whatever way we can and support it in whatever way we can. We've always done that. We've talked to people. We listen to people. We'll continue doing that.
Councillor Maney.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, as a North Grays councillor, I'm acutely aware that for many in the community, the Thameside is held in a great deal of affection. But there is almost a recurring theme where we get simplistic arguments from the Labour group and impassioned pleas and displays of emotion without any substance. Just look at the section 151 officer comments. I'll read them to you because the motion just completely, evades any mention of that, and no one in the Labour group has actually addressed it yet. Some of the many challenges facing the Thameside complex reflect the failure to invest in the building for a considerable time, and the backlog maintenance required to bring it up to an acceptable level is 18 to 20 million pounds. Who is going to step forward in the next few minutes and tell us where that money is going to come from? I was the portfolio holder with responsibility for the Thameside. Independent Labour group have had their say. I was the portfolio holder for heritage and culture after 2004, and we were pouring millions of pounds into that building then, and here we are 20 years later still pouring millions of pounds into it and arguing where we're going to find the next tranche of millions to bring it up to standard. And it's no good just dismissing it and saying it's all wrong. If you want to retain the Thameside and you want to convince us on this side of the chamber that it has a future, instead of making these impassioned pleas, because we know what the arguments are, come forward with a plan that makes it economically viable. How will we make it energy efficient? How will, for the long term, we make that economically sustainable? Because so far, it's not just about the here and now. We'll be having this debate in 5-10 years' time if we don't make it economically sustainable. It is placing an intolerable burden on the local finances, and you haven't told us genuinely how you would make it sustainable. And I'm sorry, until we hear those sensible, credible arguments, we have to face reality. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Worrell, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think that the business plan does all what Councillor Maney is asking of us. Maybe just read it. Just read it. Before I talk on it, just to say that Sam Byrne asked a question tonight about this coming to council, and Councillor Coxall said that it's a cabinet decision, an executive decision. But it's an executive decision that you can refer it to council. So please bring it to all 49, because there might be a very different 49 people in just 10 weeks' time, so who knows what's going to be there. So, Why do we need to save the Thameside? You know, we can talk about the library. You know, it is our central library. A place that's often overlooked, but it's not underused. And I'm not just going to talk about books. The students that use the library, I'd like to think that my son spent many an hour in Thameside Library, had all of his university degree books sent there for his thesis. And, you know, you go upstairs and there's people there looking for jobs. The people from the Friends of Essex and Homeless, they'll go down there, you know, to access, that's where we send them, to access computers for them to register as homeless to this council, because, you know, it's quite difficult to come in here for a lot of them people to actually take that step through the door to say it, you know. So a lot, that library gets used for something very, very different. It's not just books, you know, it's lots of other stuff. And you could never recreate that in this building. You know, that feeling of walking into a library, you can't get that in the civic offices. You know, the museum, yeah, let's have a new museum, but we've been here before. We've had, Councillor Snell, you left on a Thameside review, you know, so you know that we're just going round saying, yeah, we're going to have a new library and we're going to have a new museum. We're actually bankrupt, you know, we ain't got no money, you know, we do have to ask, like, to buy stationery now, let alone, you know, building, you know, can't even build a railway station, poor old Stamford Lee Hope hasn't got one. So the museum, it's got the archive rooms next door to it, and we need to be able to preserve that. People have gifted their stuff to us. We can't pack it up in boxes and just move it away. We really do need to have it. But for me, the biggest thing, and everybody knows, it's that theatre on the top floor. I want every child to be able to walk through that door and feel the excitement of going to see the pantomime, knowing that Father Christmas is coming. You know, you can't recreate that in a village hall, in a school hall. You just can't do it. It doesn't work. You know, my niece and her daughter, you know, the dance shows that go on there. You know, the arguments, how much work they put into it. The shows are just absolutely unreal. And nothing can do more than when you see those little kids coming out and taking their bow, not because they're in a hall, because they're on a stage, in the theatre, in that building, just walking into there for all of their rehearsals. It's just amazing to see that. You can't recreate that in a village hall. You know, I'd hope to see that many of you, you know, we've got Thurrock Courts players, tops on stage, the Night in Theatre Company, thank you. You know, they was all out there tonight. You know, we cannot shut that theatre and let that stuff all go to waste. We have to say that we are willing to do that. You pretended tonight while the people were here that you was willing. But before, I'm just going to finish, Mr. Mayor, to go back to last year. Do you remember when I said to you, Russell Brand had tweeted that he supported the Save Your Thameside campaign? One smart councillor shouted out, if he really cared, he'd come and do a show. Well, you know what? Just like theatre. He's only been and done it, just like pantomime. I think that he's done a very, very good job for us. But just imagine, he hasn't helped you, but he's helped us and he's helped the theatre people. You know, just imagine what else could happen in that theatre. Give it to the community out there that care, because yous don't care. They care, right? Those people out there care. They're going to be here long after us, you know, but give them theirs, you know. Do the right thing tonight and vote for this motion, because it is important that we save that, because until you've got something to move them into, don't shut the Thameside.
Councillor Kent. Councillor Kent.
Mr. Mayor, I'm incredibly disappointed by what we've heard, and I say again, I wrote down very carefully what Councillor Coxall said at the beginning of the meeting about the Thameside. He said, I am passionate about it and I don't want it lost to the borough of Thurrock. It's amazing what you say when there's a full gallery and what you say when the gallery's suddenly emptied. Councillor Abbas, who now wants to see the building closed. I remember when he was standing outside with the protesters. It's amazing, Mr Mayor, what £12,000 or pieces of silver does. Councillor Ralph, I agree with much of what Councillor Ralph said, but what I will say is that having the library, the museum and the theatre together gives you an extra capacity. You get more than a sum of the parts when you bring everything together in that kind of cultural hub. And I've got to say that it's incredibly disappointing that very, very recently Harlow received levelling up money to build something that is very similar to the Thameside, to put those things together in one place. Councillor Byrne of the Independent Labour Party, just for absolute clarity, Councillor Byrne can stay in the Independent Labour Party. We want him nowhere near the real one. And I say that with great affection. Councillor Arnold, we want a better arts and culture offer. You know, we have a better arts and culture offer coming with £1 million that we've got through the Creative People and Places bid. But much of that offer is much of that bid is based around having the Thameside as a base from which to work. And Councillor Maney asks some really reasonable questions. What I would say is that estimate of 18 to 20 million pounds of capital works needed, I just do not accept. Much of those costs are based on lifting the roof from the theatre, raising the level of it. That's not something, for instance, that needs to be done. You ask about where the revenue would come from. The pantomime this year took £250,000. It took £250,000. Now, that's not profit. Of course, that's not profit. But it is a huge amount of money. And when you get a building that's being properly run, with a properly run bar and proper concessions and all the rest of it that go around that, you can quite easily see where with a few big shows a year, you could drive the revenue that will make that theatre and make that complex work. We can all see that. So I think that there are bids on the table, there are business plans there that do actually stack up, that don't need a subsidy, and we should be looking at them very carefully. So I am disappointed that we've gone from being passionate about the building and not wanting it lost to saying that, you know what, it can go. So Mr Mayor, before I put the motion to the vote, if I can have 5 members standing, I'm going to ask for a requisition vote.
Democratic Services, if you could please conduct the vote.
Thank you. If you could indicate if you're for or against or abstain from the motion. Councillor Abbas.
Against.
Councillor Allen.
For.
Councillor Anderson.
Against.
Councillor Deborah Arnold.
Against.
Councillor Paul Arnold.
Against.
Councillor Byrne.
Keep it live. Keep it open.
I assume that's for Councillor Byrne. Councillor Carter.
Against.
Councillor Chukwa.
For.
Councillor Collins.
Against.
Councillor George Cockshall.
Against.
Councillor Mark Cockshall.
Against.
Councillor Duffin.
Against.
Councillor Howden.
Against.
Councillor Hebb.
Against.
Councillor Holloway.
For.
Councillor Jeffreys.
What am I doing? Against.
Councillor Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Kelly.
Against.
Councillor Cathy Kent.
For.
Councillor John Kent.
For.
Councillor Kerrin.
For.
Councillor Lydiard.
For.
Councillor Little.
Against.
Councillor Maney.
Against.
Councillor Massey.
For.
Councillor Mays.
Against.
Councillor Muldowney.
For.
Councillor Onanaji.
Against.
Councillor Panjala.
For.
Councillor Pearce.
Against.
Councillor Pothecary.
For.
Councillor Ralph.
Against.
Councillor Redsell.
Against.
Councillor Shinnock.
100% for.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Snell.
Against.
Councillor Spillman.
Against.
Councillor Tandy.
Against.
And Councillor Worrell.
For.
(24 against, 15 in favour). The motion falls. And that concludes the meeting. Thank you very much.